welcome to the, after a long-awaited, storm-delayed school committee meeting. Welcome to the meeting of Monday, March 4th, 2013. You'd all rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Alrighty, I'd like to open up the meeting tonight with any comments from the general public. Mr. Pratt, step up to the mic and say your name, where you're from. Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thanks, school committee. I just want to say I'm really happy to see what's on the agenda tonight. I'm very pleased that superintendent has probably not slept much in the last 5 or 6 weeks putting this together, because it's extremely important. And I just want to say that I've already apologized to the Board of Selectmen at their meeting on the 12th, and I want to apologize to the members as well if there was any confusion, if I caused any bad feelings or anything else like that at the January 22nd meeting. My goal and my intent then, as it was in 2011, was to try to help the town get a new elementary school. And as much as we all can disagree and on things and on paths, to me the non-binding was a tough nut to swallow if we had to do it again. And I just want to say I appreciate Liz's efforts in going to the MSBA and getting that all cleared up, and letting us just move forward. And I'm hoping that with the workings of the school committee and members and the superintendent and the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, that when after you guys get to look at it and decide what to do, the Board of Selectmen can unanimously support the submission of the statement of interest, and we can just move forward in 2013. And to that end, I have a meeting tonight at 7:30 for the Town Building Study Committee. And we are starting anew, and we are going to look at this with a new set of eyes and not a deadline facing us as we did in 2011. Not, or at least not the abbreviated deadline we were faced with. So, we have 4 members who are willing to, step up and do this again. And I just want to let you know, personally, you have my support with the statement of interest, and I wish everyone good luck.
There's copies for your building study committee.
Anne-Marie is way ahead of you.
She gave, but there's just not just one.
Oh, okay.
There's one for every person.
All right, I'll grab those on my way.
For each member, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other comments from the general public this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move on to comments from the APC. I see Ms. Dollins with us.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everybody. Spring is on its way, I hope. I'm just here to express my appreciation for the staff and for everything that's been happening at administration and townwide to be able to move forward with the building project. And I am the president of the Educational Association of Plymouth and Carver. The viewing audience might not know that, but I have the opportunity to work with 2 school committees and 2 superintendents. And there are 1,260 members. And I would like to also pledge our support, the whole organization, to being able to help out in any way that we can to be able to move forward and make Carver even more successful, if that's possible, than it already is. I'm also here to appreciate one other member that is very, very important to me. As you can know, with 1,260 members in 2 different schools, to be able to try to figure out, I would like to acknowledge Linda Haju. She is the vice president of the Educational Association of Plymouth and Carver, and she represents Carver. And she is my right-hand person, and you've seen her in the front row every single school committee meeting, and maybe the viewing public doesn't see that. But
for years.
For years, thank you. Thank you, for years. So I think that she needs to be acknowledged for that, and I thank her and all of the people behind me that you can't see right now, but they're all there. So I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity. and again, to give our support.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Ms. Harju.
Yes. With that, I see we have some students with us. Update from the Student Advisory Council and Captain's Council.
They are not.
They are not here, no. This is for our field trip, yes.
So I'm not sure if we do not have student advisory or captain's council.
And if they arrive later, we can always go back to them. With that, we'll move forward then to the approval of the minutes.
Come on in, Heather.
Let's first look at the minutes of December 10th, 2012, both regular and executive session minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the December 10th regular session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion over the minutes of December 10th? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous. With that, that was the regular minutes. Let's move on to the executive session minutes of December 10th.
I make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of December 10th, 2012.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Let's move on now to the January 14th regular session minutes.
I wasn't here, so I will be abstaining.
We have an abstention, so that leaves the three of us. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed or abstained?
Me.
We have one.
One abstention.
One abstention. And now, finally, we have the executive session minutes of January 14th. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those abstained?
And one abstention.
One abstention. Thank you. All right, with that, we will move on to communications.
So, I just put it in your packet to make you aware that the U.S. Department of Education issued a clarification on the rights of students with disabilities to access school sports. And I think we've always made every effort to go above and beyond to include all students, but this is a good reminder of what our responsibilities are, and I just wanted to remind the school committee.
I don't know if any other members had a chance to read. It got me curious because that day when it came out, lots of radio talk and whatnot were happening as far as how it would affect school departments and whatnot. So I did read it, and I think really it's just a challenge to make sure that your district is providing an opportunity for those with disabilities. It doesn't necessarily say you have to find ways to fit them in where it's not appropriate. And I think, at least I feel from what I read, that it's a good way to support those and give everyone an opportunity to participate and balance off without really affecting district's financial stability at the same time. So it's great. I would encourage you to make sure if you have an opportunity to read, just so you're educated on that, and make sure we're providing the best services to those in our community.
In addition to that, I like the way that it's written because it doesn't paint everything with a broad brush. Just because somebody has a particular handicap doesn't necessarily mean somebody with an identical handicap may be able to make that team, whatever it may be. And I like the way that it differentiates everybody as an individual and doesn't group them together negatively or positively.
Absolutely. I concur. So, great. With that, we'll move on to reports.
Yes. So tonight we have with us, first of all, I'd like to point out to you that I reorganized the agenda under our school committee goals for the, so that we can have a record of how we approach these goals throughout the year. So I thought that might be helpful. I hope it is. And tonight, under instructional leadership, which is to provide standards-based curriculum instruction to increase learning, student growth, and achievement as measured by selected state and local assessments. Well, tonight we're going to have a report on the student trip to the inauguration of 2013. Mr. Neef, And Mrs. Kilnap.
Meredith, I don't know if we can have your seat.
Yes,
We're kicking it.
please do.
I'm sorry.
That's right. Can I just-
We'll let
You can
get up.
scoot your chairs up there, girls, too. if
Yeah.
you want.
Gonna bring your chairs up.
You take my chair over there.
What'd you do, Scott?
Got some Carver in my new-
Good evening.
So, good evening, everybody. So let me start by introducing who's with us here, who's with me here this evening to talk about our trip, and then I'll talk a little bit about what our plan is in terms of the presentation. So first is Mrs. Kilnap, who's an English teacher at the high school, who was one of our chaperones on the trip, along with myself and Dawn Ruel, who's a social studies teacher at the high school, and Jackie Perkins, who's an English teacher at the high school. We were the four staff members from the school who went. And we also have Courtney Garner, Courtney and Miranda Jackson, and Olivia Pelletier. All three of them are sophomores who were on the trip with us. So I'm just going to give a really brief overview of what we went and saw. So I'll do it quickly because it's a lot of things. Then we're all going to share a little bit about what we thought was the greatest impact for us on the trip, what we enjoyed the most. And then we have a brief picture slideshow presentation of the trip to show to the committee, and then we'll answer any questions that anybody has.
Great.
So it was really an action-packed 4 days. In all, we took 32 students on the trip and 4 chaperones. I'll just quickly list where did we go and what did we see, and we did a lot. We saw Ford's Theater, the Holocaust Museum, the 9/11 Memorial at the Pentagon, which is fairly new, just opened recently. We went to the National Archives. We saw the change of the guard at Arlington National Cemetery. We went to several of the Smithsonian museums. We went to pretty much every monument. The Martin Luther King Memorial, which is new, which was just opened a year ago. The Franklin Roosevelt Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Vietnam War Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, the Marine Corps Memorial which represents the raising of the flag at Mount Suribachi at Iwo Jima. And then obviously, most importantly, we went and saw the inauguration. And we had an outstanding opportunity. Our seats, which were from our local representative, actually placed us on the Capitol lawn. So where we were on the day of the inauguration is we were fairly close. We were on the grounds of the Capitol. We were right behind the seated section. So the people in front of us had seats. We didn't have seats. But we may have sat. We looked at the people's seats. The funny thing about the people's seats is they came really a lot later. So we were there. We were in our spot probably by 7:45 in the morning. And the inauguration started at noon. But they actually really started the ceremony about 10:30. But the seats were probably empty until 10:30. So like, why can't we
It's
just
like those
go
good
to
seats at the
Yeah.
ballpark. They always
Like,
come late.
Yeah, so when you get seats, I guess you don't have to, it's a little easier, you can come later. So in the future, as we go forward for the inauguration, maybe we'll make that next step and get to the opportunity to actually have seats on the Capitol lawn. But it really was, because when you look back on the day of the inauguration, it's on the back side of the Capitol, look down the mall, and there were people a mile back on the mall, and we were fortunate enough to be on the Capitol lawn. So it was really overall an outstanding trip where the students just had tremendous learning opportunities to learn about our national government. And for me personally, the thing that I enjoy most about the trip, from my own perspective, is it just gives me an opportunity to work with and interact with students maybe in a different way than I get to on a regular basis every day in school. Sometimes, my role as the principal, I don't have that opportunity to have that same interactions that you would have as a regular teacher on a daily basis. But being with the students for 4 days gave me that opportunity. So beyond the learning experience that we were able to provide for our students, the thing that I enjoyed the most was that opportunity to just work with students and be with students in a different way. And I thought overall the trip was very well organized. The company we went through, Word Strides, does a great job. We went with them 4 years ago as well. Everything really flowed perfectly. There were no issues. There were no bumps in the road. Even our bus that we took the ride down and overnight, we left at 10 p.m. and arrived down there at 6 in the morning. Our bus ride overnight was great, and the bus was modern bikes, state-of-the-art, brand new,
Kids
full
like
internet service,
Plugs for their phones.
plugs for all their utility equipment. Everyone was always charged. It was
So
great.
you were really roughing
We were not roughing it. It was really great. So no, overall for me, it was just an outstanding experience, and I think for each of our students it was as well. And so we want to share that a little bit. So everybody's going to talk a little bit about what they enjoyed about the trip, and then we'll show you the presentation.
Great.
I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh at my principal, but we were laughing because, you know, you turn around and Mr. Neef's on the back of the bus with the kids, you know, and he's, you know, really getting to spend a lot of time with them. And it's nice to see my principal get to interact with the kids like this, and it's nice for myself to get to interact. My most memorable moment was, I think we woke up at 4 in the morning, the day of the inauguration, and we had to walk because the buses have to leave you really far away. So we all walked together, and it was just an amazing, knowing we're walking to history and to a moment where, I'm gonna cry, to a moment where, I cried in a lot of things. We did a lot of things. They kept turning around saying, Miss Kellogg's crying again.
I did not cry.
To know that I was responsible for 34 kids and bringing them to a place where history was going to happen, and I was gonna get to be there with them and share it and be part of a moment for them for the rest of their lives. I mean, I impact them in the classroom, but you know, they move on, they have other teachers. Like, this is something we did, and we get to remember it forever. And this is a very special group of kids, and I'm honored that you let me go. I'm honored we got to go as a school. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
I couldn't have really picked a favorite part because, as Mr. Neef said, we did so many things there, but some of my favorite things were the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial. And just being down there during that weekend and during the inauguration was incredible because, you know, only so many people get to go in their lifetime, and I'm only 16 and I have already been to one, so it was incredible to be down there and have the experience. And as Ms. Kilnap said, it is something that, you know, I'll have for the rest of my life, so it was very good. It was a lot of fun.
I liked the trip most because being 16, I haven't quite, I guess, grown my knowledge for politics. I was never very interested until we did go on this trip, and I learned to appreciate my country as a whole much more than I did before prior to going. I learned a lot of stuff in the 4 days that we did go. Surprisingly, one after another, we were always on task, and I was filling with knowledge as we drove along. But my favorite part of the trip, I would have to say, was the Kennedy Center, which was a quick stop by because besides all the historic memories and events that we saw and all that, we got to really learn, like, not only the history of the country, but also the culture. And so I think that everybody on the trip really got a good feel for our country as a whole, whether it be knowing about Lincoln or King, Martin Luther King. We just, we got to really know the country as a whole. Like, yeah, it was great.
I really enjoyed just being there during that weekend, to kind of just be in the crowd with everybody else going through that. It was really cool knowing that you're watching history, and even seeing all the memorials. They're incredible to see, and I recommend anybody who should go there. I really loved being there during that weekend, especially with my friends and teachers, and just all kind of interacting and going through this together was a really, really cool experience, and it was great. I loved it.
Can I add one more thing?
I'm going to add something else, so you can. It's
Okay.
fine. Go ahead.
You should have the last
Go
word.
ahead.
You should have the last word. I just want to say that the kids were amazing. The behavior was, I wouldn't expect, my expectations are very high of them, but they rose to those expectations, and they were just wonderful. Everywhere we went, people kept saying, they're so good. Your crowd is so good. We never had a single problem. I don't think I spoke to anyone at all. It was amazing. They were really great. It really proud of them.
How did these students get selected, or how did they get to be chosen?
So the trip was actually open, and I should have said this. The trip was mostly 9th and 10th graders. We originally opened it up to 9th and 10th grade class, solely based on the expense of it. It was $1,000 per person, and our juniors and seniors are generally planning towards grad night, other trips, and so we didn't originally open it up to them. But we needed to have 30 to go. That was our magic number. And so we fell a little bit short of the 30, so then we did open it up to all grades. So really any student who had the ability to do so was able to go. You know, obviously, it's always tough. It's always a tough discussion about the cost of a trip and how many people does that leave out. We did do some small fundraising. We tried to, through World Strides, the company we travel with, they actually have scholarship programs. And we made that information available to parents that they could have gone and applied for a scholarship through the company itself, and that's based on financial need. So that opportunity was there. But the reality is, being $1,000, it's always limiting. If it wasn't $1,000, we probably would have had a lot more students go than the 32 that did attend. So really, those students who chose to go could go. But it was mostly 9th and 10th graders.
I know 4 years ago we went, correct?
Mhm, we
And
did.
is this something we want to make an annual event? So
Yeah,
maybe somebody 4 years from now can start to save for that
Yeah,
kind of thing? Or?
Right, and yes, I think we should do it more as a annual event. We could have done a little bit more advanced planning. So we, again, didn't introduce the trip until September. So really going forward in 4 years, I think, I've enjoyed the trip. I've been on both of them. And so I would say that I would take this on as my thing that I'm going to run, and maybe, we just have to start advertising maybe a year or two beforehand, and let's give people a little more opportunity to raise the funds to attend the trip. It was actually cheaper the second time than it was the first time. I think solely because Obama's first inauguration was just such a historic event that drove prices up a little bit. It was $200 cheaper a student than it was 4 years ago. So. All those factors get involved. And then from a straight perspective of the trip itself, the thing that I enjoyed the most was the changing of the guard at Arlington National Cemetery, just because I hadn't had the opportunity to see that before. The other times I'd been in Washington, I just didn't do it. And when we went with the inauguration trip last time, we actually didn't have access to the grounds. So that was a first time for me. So I personally enjoyed that very much. So I guess we'll just show you the show, unless anybody else wants to add anything else.
I can't play.
We'll show you the slideshow we have, and then we'll go from there.
These are just pictures from myself, Mrs. Perkins, Mr. Neef, and the kids.
I texted Mr. Neef and I said, where are you? Because I was watching it, and he sent me a picture so I could hone in and watch them on that side of the. It was really
No music.
Well, then you'll have to sing. The national anthem will do. Or you could lip sync like someone else we know.
You can walk us through
Yeah.
where we are at.
We were lucky enough to see the White House from all angles.
Yeah. That first picture, White House, is a great picture. That's Ford's Theater, and that's Lincoln's box. The Pentagon Memorial that was a picture of is pretty interesting. The benches go two directions, depending on whether you were on the plane or whether you were in the building. So anything pointed at the building you were on is a memorial to someone who was on the plane. Anybody pointing out is someone who was in the Pentagon.
Wow.
The picture before, you saw that students got to go to an inaugural ball, and they had it all set up for World Stride students, and it was really nice. They had they had a live band playing for them. It was nice.
This is the four chaperones. There's the picture of you as a group.
There it is.
There you got it now.
Mrs. Perkins.
So everybody at the Jefferson Memorial.
Trying to get them all together for pictures, it's not easy. Except when they were sitting and eating.
Were there meals through the tour company as well?
Yeah, only breakfast and dinner was paid for. Lunch was on our own. We went to Lincoln Memorial in the evening, obviously.
That's what the Capitol looked like as we were walking to it with the United
There's a picture of our ticket. This is where we were.
You
That's
guys
where we
were
were.
pretty
Mr.
close.
Neef, we all had hats on so we could locate.
Carver was well
And
represented.
that's one of our students in the tree.
But that's the actual view of.
They're not, yeah, they're going fast. They are. Sorry.
But the white hats were very helpful because that crowd was huge, and I'm tall. And I wore 2 hats, so that extra hat made me extra tall. So people could, a couple people found my white hat.
This was a really cold morning. Some of the kids were like, I couldn't even believe what they were.
Yeah,
Telling them, bundle up.
The weather was unbelievable. 3 of the days we were there was in the mid 50s. It couldn't have been better. The day, except for that day. And that was, then when the morning we went to Arlington National Cemetery, it was in the teens with a wind chill below 0. So that day, so it went from 3 days of 50s to a really, really cold day. Oh, this is them dancing on the bus.
Little flash mob on the bus.
It's not angled right.
Oh, so I thought you had the full
Can't see the
picture.
kids fit. No, it's not cropped on the TV right.
Oh, it's cropped on the iPad, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to doing the trip again in 4 years.
Absolutely.
So, we know you'd love to stay, but you're welcome to go home and do your homework. Thank you, Mrs.
fact, we
Helmut,
encourage
for
it.
Oh,
coming.
thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry, Scott, grab this right here.
And thank your other teachers, colleagues for giving their time too.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Thank you, ladies.
Under management and operations, we just, our usual personnel updates. Kathy Webster retired in January, and Ron Mitchell is retiring at the end of this month. And Lorraine Rogers has given us her letter that she's going to retire at the end of the school year. New hires, Jessica Thayer is taking the place of Kathy Webster. And for a long-term sub for social studies for Mr. Mitchell, Joseph Bianco is staying through the end of the year and was able to start immediately. So that was good continuity of instruction there. We have had a few more letters of retirement, and we'll be putting them on the April school committee. So this is just to catch you up until now. And then we have the letters that you can see that they did. And so now we're going to talk about the statement of interest. And I thought Lance is going to do most of the talking, but I thought I would walk you through what's in the book. On the left-hand side, you will see the actual statement of interest that looks like this. And it was very, very different this time. They said we'll pre-populate the data. Well, I got less than a paragraph of data because the questions were all different. The other thing is you're required to type them in text boxes where you can only see 3 sentences at a time. And then when it prints out, it prints out. So it's very difficult to format. And the other part is you get so many characters. You get 5,000 characters for this question and 2,000 characters. And the characters count spaces and commas. So basically it's all
Gotta
one
get to the point, yes.
It's all one long paragraph. So it's not as though I don't know how to make paragraphs. It's just in order to get the question answered, I had to take advantage of every single place in there. And if you'll see on the second page, which is basically part of the instructions, it says we must submit our engineering study and the information that applies to this school. And so and we can't use our architects and engineers that came forward and worked with us to design many different options, because they might have a stake in our future plans. So therefore, we can't use their information because it would be a conflict of interest. So we had to go all the way back to the study of 2005-2006. So that's the first thing on the right-hand side. They also asked, one of the questions is, how do you plan for capital expenditures in your district? So the next thing is the capital outlay plan. So you're allowed to include references to that. What have you done with your community to look at the building and that? So I've included the building survey results and the results of the focus group meetings, all of which have been previously presented. And as part of the history of what we've done, we're a little bit unusual because we're reapplying for a new statement of interest, yet we've already been through a whole long process. So as part of the history, I included the 3 final options, and we'll look at those. One was a brand new building, one was tear down the Governor John and rebuild and restore and add on to the Irwin K. Washburn, and then B3, the one we ended up picking in the first feasibility study, was renovating both buildings and adding new construction between them. So these were the final 3 that went to the public. Although we do not have to submit our population data this time, they will take it straight from the Department of Education's website. They do ask a question is, what is your student-teacher ratio? And how are they distributed in your building? So I included how we calculated that. In all of our classrooms, pre-K through 5, the number of who teaches in that and what's their number of children in that class. And then besides the teachers who are in charge of the class, with each grade level, we have a special education teacher who's the inclusion teacher. And that teacher has a caseload. It generally varies between 15 and 28. I did not put the exact numbers because children move in and out of ed plans on a weekly basis. And then in addition to that, we have art teachers and music teachers and PE teachers and reading teachers who teach the same number of children that are already counted in these classrooms. So I just put the total number of children that they're assigned to, which is art teachers teach half the population, 414 students, music teachers. And in reading, these teachers teach the children in the need of intervention services. In general, their caseload's between 25 and 35 in a week, but they teach them in small groups. But these are the same children that are in these classrooms. So when you count that up, there's 55 teachers, and we have 828 students. Therefore, there is 1 teacher for every 15 students, which sounds like an ideal number. But in reality, our classroom sizes run from 17 to 27. So not everybody has 15. And then there are teachers that are behavior specialists, contained classroom, special education who teach the most severe special needs children, our school psychologists, speech language pathologists, the occupational therapists, the physical therapists, and these people, those 2, plus the behavior therapists are assigned K-12, not just at the elementary school, but they definitely work at the elementary school. The 2 counselors, the nurse for one building, the nurse for the other building. One of the nurses serves as the district-wide nurse leader. And then, of course, the 3 principals, a principal and 2 associate principals. So in tandem with that are the maps. These are engineered drawings that I marked on to show where every class meets. Because this is particularly important because some classes are meeting in closets and offices and on the stage. And our math intervention groups meet in the cafeteria. So I put as much information as I could to back up what was said in the statement of interest. So that's what you have.
Great. Thank you, Liz. I trust everyone's had a chance to look this through, and what I really wanted to do for the public, at least to start this evening, is kind of explain a little bit of what the statement of interest represents and kind of break it down to help everyone kind of understand the dynamics of it. first of all, kind of the state has its requirements. If you meet all these things, then you can follow through. I won't get into that detail. Yes, we do. And more importantly, kind of what does the statement of interest represent? And they kind of put things into 8 priority categories. And in our statement of interest, we're meeting 4 of those category priorities. And I'll just briefly read those to you. Out of the 8, replacement or renovation of a building which is structurally unsound or otherwise in a condition seriously jeopardizing the health and safety of school children where no alternatives exist. It's one of the categories that we are answering questions on. The next is elimination of existing severe overcrowding. Clearly another category that applies to our situation. The next category that we address is replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems, to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. So that's the 3rd category that we meet. And then the 4th one is replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. So those are the 4 that meet our situation, just so that people are aware that the 4 that we didn't, prevention of loss of accreditation. So is this a situation we could lose accreditation based on the school building? That doesn't meet our situation. Prevention of severe overcrowding expected to result from increased enrollment, not a situation that applies here. Short-term enrollment growth. Again, another situation doesn't apply. And then finally, transition from court-ordered and approved racial balanced school districts to walk-to, so-called, or other school districts in a category that doesn't apply to us. So just so that everyone's kind of clear, those are the 8 categories. We felt it appropriate that our situation applies to 4 of those. And really, a statement of interest then takes those 4 categories, and the state has questions for each of those categories, and that's what Liz spent the time doing, was answering those questions on each of the 4 categories on why we meet them, what are the situations, and then what kind of things have happened since. So,
some of it's incredibly redundant because one school district will pick 1, 2, 5, and 7 like we did, and another one will pick 3, 6, 8, and 10, and they want to know the same thing from everyone. So there's certain questions they ask over and over in every single section, and I'm understood that they have different people read pieces of this. So it's very redundant, but that's the reason.
with that, kind of open it up to the committee as far as their thoughts on the statement of interest.
On the plans that were submitted, the B3, I, and H, I think they are, does that mean that we have to select one of those 3?
No. This was, in the past, it asks you about the history of your building project. And this refers to how far we went and where it stopped. So we got to the point where we picked 3 options. None of this ties us to anything. I just had to be honest about how far we got, so.
And at our last joint meeting, it's obvious, everybody knows that there was a difference of opinion. Has any contact been made with the selectmen regarding the statement of interest other than what happened at that last meeting?
Oh, yes. I've talked to Jack Franny at least 4 times, right, Jack?
You mean you're referring to statement of interest versus non-binding?
Mm-hmm.
That situation?
Yes, and we have talked to Rick, the Board of Selectmen, let them know that we don't have to do it, so they're well informed.
And just since it's mentioned, and so the community's clear, it was brought to our attention that the dynamic of MSBA currently, the last we knew, and at the time that Liz shared with us, the knowledge was that we still needed it. They've had some leadership changes over there, and through some investigating by different members of the community, we were able to find out that a non-binding is not necessary. So we're very excited for that, because that allows that process to go by the wayside, and appreciate the work that was done with that. So we're able to move forward with the statement of interest without having to deal with the non-binding issue. So. There's also a new chairman of the board of directors. It was Tim Cahill, and it's not any longer. So clearly he's got his own challenges.
Yes, he does.
And not to belabor a touchy subject, but because of my experience with this, with stops and starts, and yes you do and no you don't, it's not off the table completely. They may come around in 2 months and tell us we do need it. Is that right?
The message that was given to me, we have decided that you do not have to do this right now, but it doesn't preclude us asking you from doing it in the future.
Okay.
That's all it said.
Yeah.
So as we know with things, leadership can change and decisions change, but as we stand, it is not necessary, which is great. To bring you back to this statement of interest, I have my thoughts, but I'd love to hear from you guys first.
As far as I'm concerned, this is just something where we're letting the state know that we're interested in starting the process. There's nothing tying us to anything, and I think it's a foot in the door. It's an important start. Have to start somewhere.
As far as content of statement of interest, anybody have any thoughts or things that?
I'd actually like to, considering you did this 3 lines at a time, Liz, I'd like to, thank you for all your hard work in putting this together. I imagine it was quite a bit. I know it took a long time to go through it all, so I can imagine putting it together was quite a task, too. I did just a couple of quick things. On one page...
They're numbered in the middle at the bottom.
Yeah, on page 20, 1A, it says, when you're talking about the John Carver, it says 18 classrooms for students grades 3 through 6.
Oh,
Provide
thank
enough
you.
teaching stations.
Thank you. That's exactly what I'd hoped you'd catch. I can't tell you how many people have read it, so I'm always thrilled when somebody else reads it and helps me.
And I, going through this, and I really tried to take my time and go through it. It was a lot to really read and digest. On page 6, down at the bottom where the district proposed schedule is, it says to gain a majority of votes of the Carver School Committee and the Board of Selectmen in order to submit the statement of interest by April 10th. I fully support this. I agree that this is the step that we need to move in. My concern and my question is that in order to do that, we've seen from the meeting at the 22nd that if we're not moving forward with the B3 or with what was done before, we've done nothing to really create any sort of sense of direction with this beyond that. And I'm concerned that it's not going to get the support if we're trying to move forward without some kind of idea as to where we're going to go, what we're going to do with this, especially in such a short
The April 10th deadline is just the deadline of the MSBA. That's when we have to submit it. But the whole purpose of being invited into feasibility study is to decide what you're going to do. So then you're given, well, we had a year before, so I'm sure we get a year again, to go through the whole feasibility process if that's what the town wants to do. If they want to start where we left off, that's fine. If they want to do a whole nother feasibility. But if we don't submit this, we can't begin.
And I understand that, but I do know that we also had this discussion on the other night, and it didn't really go over the way that people were hoping that it would. And my question to that is, I guess, how are we presenting that differently, or how are we going to present that to the Board of Selectmen in order to receive that support that we're looking for in order to get that? Because without their majority vote, it's not going to go through. Have they received a copy of this yet in order for them to start looking it over to
I felt like the school committee had to have it first. And so they have their copies are all made. I've given Jack has his, and I've given Steve, but I didn't think it was fair to give it out to everyone until you got to put your opinions on it. And the one thing I'd like to say is, as your school superintendent, if you read this, I feel if I don't work every single day to put this forward, I have failed the children, because it's not a safe building. And if I wait another year, I mean, could be you all decide not to put it forward, but I have to tell you, it's not safe in so many ways. It's very frightening to me. So I couldn't do anything but put down the exact condition. Then I think then it's up to the Board of Selectmen and, the school committee to decide if they want to go forward at this time and entertain the whole feasibility process again.
Well, I mean, I'm not reluctant to this in any way, because obviously I have I have a very good perspective of what those teachers have to go through every day in that building, knowing that I kind of go through the same thing. And I also have 2 children in that building, one of them in kindergarten who will be in there for the next 5 years. So, I agree, but my point, I guess what I'm trying to make is we need to make sure that when we do this, that we're doing this the right way, that we're not going to run into the same roadblocks that are going to stop us at a certain point, and making sure that from the start we're on the right track with where we're going, and not trying to catch up or not trying to turn a corner all of a sudden where it's not what was thought of or what was expected. I just want to make sure that we're looking at this in the right lens to make sure that we're moving forward together in the right direction, to make sure that that support is there, because we need it.
No, and I agree with James. I think, and I don't know if your point is this, but like you said, clearly we understand that the hurdles seem to be the fiscal part. So, and what I've heard a lot from both the Board of Selectmen and yourself and many others is we need some of that up front before we move forward on this. And I agree with that, but I think this piece of it, I think they need to exist together. And I think, to your point, I'd like to see, whether it's a cost analysis committee or something, we start to work on that piece of it as this is going on, because again, as you said, I've got a son that's almost in kindergarten and yours is there now. I'd like to see them in a new building. And so we're talking 5 years, and if we don't start this process, it is going to be another 5, and our kids are going to be on through, and it'll be the next generation that can benefit. But I agree. I think we need to have both. I think we need to start a group that's really going to start to analyze the fiscal piece of it, so that we can really have a handle for the community to get behind it, because I think, as we know, that's been our challenge, is really getting the community behind it fiscally. So I think those things need to move forward. And this is a piece of it that clearly has no financial ties at all. This is just telling the state, this is our dilemma, and this is our plight, and we need your help. But those steps need to take place at the same time. I agree.
Well, and that's, I mean, I don't need to be convinced. I'm on board.
Right.
But I know there are others that are. And I think that if we can show them, not by our word, but by our actions, that we're doing something, by creating something, or by making some committee, or by doing something that's moving in that direction, that we're showing them that we're not just trying to jump on the same track, but that we are trying to do something different, and that we are willing to look at this and listen to everybody and move forward in a different way. And I'm not saying that has to happen immediately, but we have to show some signs of that progress, as you're saying, to really not just talk about it, but show it and make it real.
Which some things may have to happen immediately. I agree with you. I mean, I think that was my first thought. So if we decide to pass this, and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen, and then they don't pass it because it's the same old, I'd absolutely agree.
It's not going anywhere.
So
Right.
we need to figure out what steps will come next. I mean, it's almost, you have steps 1 through 10, for an example, but we really need to do step 3 before we go to step 1, or else step 1's never going to happen.
Well, we at least
So
have
it's
to have a
kinda-
plan that way.
Well, exactly. So we need to have some sort of a discussion. We need to figure out exactly how, the right way to move forward, because we've already done this. I don't want to beat a dead horse and go through this whole process and have Liz put all this effort into this huge statement of
Tumultuous,
interest. And,
yeah.
Exactly. And for what? You know, I agree. I mean, the town, we need to figure it out. So how do we do that? Do we I don't think that we should decide on our own. I feel like that there has to be some sort of a discussion
Well,
to figure out what
and
the
I
plan
think a
would
piece of
be.
it too, if my understanding is correct, is as we go through this process and we're accepted from MSBA, we're now going to gain their knowledge to be able to help us. See, I wasn't a part of the beginning, the first statement of interest, so it seems like from the second part now, we're going to be able to work with them to determine kind of some of the next steps and gain their knowledge that they work with all the other communities and how that works. So that'll help give us another resource, where clearly now phone calls don't often get through. It sounds like at that point we'll have someone that'll be working with us. Is that correct? Or
If we submit the statement of interest and we're accepted into the capital pipeline, we will be appointed a liaison, someone who will work with us on the pre-design process. And you get probably a brand new person, and then as your project manager, and then when you finish feasibility, you get a senior engineer that works with you. But number 2 means, if accepted into the capital pipeline, work with MSBA to determine where Carver will start in the process,
based on the previous failure to place the debt exclusion on the ballot in the town of Carver and the subsequent removal of the Carver project from the funding pipeline. They don't have anybody else like us. So they will give us the opportunity. Do you want to go forward from where you left off, or do you want to start anew with a brand new feasibility study? So
I think that's where some of my fear comes from. And piggybacking with what James was saying, this isn't the same old, and we want something new. We don't want the same old thing. We want the community as a whole. If this, ultimately, if we go through this whole process and it passes by one vote, I say we don't build a building. I think we need 70% support from the community. This has to have, or more. It can't be just that, the minimal number of votes that we've had in the past. And I feel that if this goes forward with that type of understanding, there's a whole lot of people in this community that's going to say, nothing's changed. It's the same old thing. So I personally would rather start from the beginning.
So what this question asked me was, what are the timelines in Carver? Each different Board of Selectmen and town bylaws and charters have different rules about when you place things on the ballot and when they go for election. That's what they wanted to know, all right? So in the first one, I said that first it has to go by the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. The second one is, if accepted, then we set down a process. If that's the view of the committees, that you want to start all over and start afresh, well, that's where you start. But we need to inform them, because different people each read different parts of this, that at this point we will have to decide in feasibility whether they're going through full feasibility or where we're going to start where we left off with feasibility schematic design. The idea then would be this has to go to the building committee at that point. When we get accepted, you'll form a building committee. And then the rest of it, resume the process at the phase required by MSBA. So they'll determine if you want to do a whole new feasibility study, they'll tell us what we have to do and what we don't have to do. That'll be their requirements.
Well, I guess that would be my question that I came with that. I'm sorry, Callie. Where it says the process required by the MSBA. What if the MSBA says in order for us to support you, we need, why would you do this again? Let's go forward, we'll let you add.
They won't make us make that decision. They already told us that.
Okay.
Yeah, that we can decide. We are a whole new project. We're not the, they're looking at this as if we're starting completely again.
Well,
if we want to use what we did before, they will allow us up to a point where if some things they want done again, they may ask us to do it again.
Well, and I think that was the result in the decision on the non-binding. They are treating us as a brand new.
Yes.
And so they've thrown the old out, and,
Yep,
and we are
kicked out.
fresh. Callie?
I was just going to say that, I mean, I think we all understand exactly, like, sitting on this board, what we have in front of us. I mean, we've all gone over it. I'm assuming everyone's gone over it. And we understand what it takes and what we're actually doing. We're not committing ourselves to anything, but I think my concern is that, okay, so we support this and we pass this, but what happens between now and the Board of Selectmen's meeting to understand that they're going to support this? I mean, it's okay for us to support it, but we need the Board of Selectmen to support it. And I guess my question is, we need to have some sort of discussion as to...
They have to read it first, so they'll get it after this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess I'm curious, and maybe it's not a discussion for right now, but when is there going to be a discussion as to how we are going to be including everyone? And
Sure.
I want to make sure that it gets passed.
Well,
I want to make sure that everyone understands we're on the same page.
Paula?
We don't meet again until April 11th, so I think now is the time.
I think we're already further ahead, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Pratt said the school town building study committee is meeting tonight. That's sooner in the process than they ever met last time. We have more time. They're involved earlier. Mr. Pratt has been at numerous meetings. Mr. Franey's here. Mr. Johnson's here. Already, people that were not as involved as early in the process are here with us and are here to ask questions, hear us debate, and raise issues. So, and I know that Mr. Franey and Liz, Ms. Sorrell said earlier that they met several times. I think that there's more information being shared. There's a lot more time being spent on the front end. So I'm hoping that people that didn't know some of that stuff that happened last time, people that weren't here last time as citizens are here tonight, have been involved earlier in the process. So I think we're actually already further ahead than we were. And if we keep doing what we've been doing this time, I'm hopeful that we'll have more understanding, more creative ideas for how to approach it. The more people that come together, the more ideas we'll have, and that's what we need. We need to, somebody that wasn't here last time might say, well, have you tried this? And maybe none of us did, or maybe the rules changed and this time we can. So I don't think we're as far behind as you guys are implying.
Well,
It's not necessarily that we're farther behind. I think it's just, I think we're a little bit shocked at the last joint meeting where we all thought that we were kind of on the same page and we realized we weren't. And I
Can we
not want to have all this work.
Can we keep it as simple as this? There's 5 of us and 5 Board of Selectmen members. If one of us, if we reach out to each one of them and give them an opportunity to fire away questions and help inform them, is that the piece of it that we feel they need, or is there some other things involved in that process that I'm not getting here?
Jack has asked me to meet with he and Helen, well, either this week or Monday night. It's going to be Monday? Okay.
What is the thoughts of the Board of Selectmen between, not on this specifically, but since the last meeting? I mean, is that appropriate to even ask or not?
Well,
on working together?
We don't necessarily, I mean, we do have a representative here, but I don't know.
So I guess we vote on this and then we just wait and see?
Well, each elected body needs to make a decision on this. That's part of the statement of interest. We understand that's one of the requirements that it needs. This is our discussion, but like you said, if it falls on deaf ears and doesn't move beyond this room, it doesn't do anybody any good. Exactly. So we need to figure that out.
When are the selectmen going to, when's the next meeting? I assume that that's when they're gonna be reviewing this, Liz?
12th, they're gonna review it on the 12th.
And is it possible for this board to meet at that meeting, to be there? And have a
Absolutely.
public discussion instead of a one-on-one conversation at a coffee shop and over the phone?
I agree.
That works.
I think that, again, going for the transparency and the unity of it all, if we can get together and be there to answer any questions and potentially put forth a process, as James was saying, you know, something that we envision or that we would like to see happen and, you know, gain support from them in that respect. I think that would be a good start.
I just think the issue would just be that we only can discuss this at a meeting. And this is the meeting we're discussing it, and there is things to be discussed before the
You
Board of
can answer
Selectmen's meeting,
one-on-one
so-
questions with other people.
Exactly,
Right,
but I
yeah.
mean as us, as a discussion as a board, and I think I like that idea.
So am I hearing then we want to hold off our discussion tonight and have that in public? Or I would prefer that we have our discussion this evening, we finish our piece of it, and then we're there to support any discussion coming from the Board of Selectmen.
Absolutely.
Am I hearing that accurately? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, good. Sometimes I'm a little dense after a long day, so I want to make sure we get it okay. All right, good. So then why don't, we'll table that piece of it then till later in the discussion, and why don't we go back to having our discussion on the topic at hand and how it relates to the school committee, and then we'll get back to the Board of Selectmen on that. So with that, any other thoughts on this? I know something that jumped out at me was just, not that, and I'm by no means it's not a scare tactic, it's just it concerns when you read this. There are some things that jump out at you. The sprinkler system is one that concerns me as one that works in a school building, that we don't have a sprinkler system that meets the needs of the building.
Yeah, both buildings.
I think that's one thing that jumps out at me. The other is just more of a nuisance, but something when you look at it is we have to transport all our food over to the other building.
Yes.
And off-season, I mean, just random things like that you don't think about, but really do impact. And then clearly things like the windows not being able to open and the air quality and a lot of different things like that. I think as you read it over and over and over, as the statement of interest shows you.
These the pictures of the
these
same
things keep coming
util in the
and over
bathrooms.
and over.
I think it was the same sinks as when
yeah.
I went to school.
Right. The thing is, these buildings were planned and built to code in 1962, 1951, and 1975. But the codes have changed, and that's why they don't meet the current codes, you know, and that you didn't have to fully sprinkle.
When they talked about the access on the sidewalks, I've always wanted to ask you, does it just mean that there's no like handicap ramp access? I've never.
On the exterior of the building, there's no ramp access because, and then to go in from the front of the Governor John, which is now closed, you enter at mid-level and you go upstairs and you go downstairs.
Right.
So the only way a handicapped student, parent, or visitor can access it is to first get over the curb, walk into the Governor John, go down the hallway, go down a chairlift to the gym floor, which is also the hallway, go across the gym floor, take a right, go up the ramp, go up the chairlift, go down the hallway, get in the elevator, and go to the second floor. So it's not what they call a barrier-free access. Then you have to remember we have classes in there all day, every day. So the hallway is also the access. So it's a challenge.
So, I mean, clearly we have a pretty clean case, I think, to the state as far as we meet the needs of what is there. I don't know if there are any other thoughts on that.
No, we definitely need, scares me, the heating units. Do they even make those? I mean, we had this discussion before, things like.
Not so much, no.
The parts and, anyway, just in general.
Well, the rooftop units, even the newer ones, they don't really make them anymore. So if something severe breaks, we have to have the parts manufactured. And last week, after the weekend, we came in and it was over 100 degrees in 2 classrooms because the pneumatic controls don't work right anymore. And it took Dave a lot of recycling and getting it going to make it work. So we're trying to do this without having a whole new system of controls made because that'd be very expensive. And you don't want to put the new rooftop units on a roof that needs to be replaced. So.
Well, James?
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You know, the air quality thing, Lance, you had mentioned a little while ago, is a really big factor, I think, a little bit more than people really give it credit for. Because when you talk about sicknesses and substitutes and kids being out of school in an old building where the windows don't open, you know, you're looking at a big loss of money just right there with that. And the fact that, you know, you're not going to put a brand new catalytic converter on a Pinto. It's outdated. It's done. And I just don't. There's a lot of talk about doing this by pieces, but I have a problem with that because I want to see this job done the right way, and I think the only way to do it the right way is to do it. But that's going to involve support from everybody and listening, and you know, people really finding that middle ground and listening to each other. But it's clear when you look at the state of this building, this really has to be done. There's no way around it.
Well, I think to Kevin's point too, when we talk about where we end up back in the pipeline and what they're requiring of us, this process does need to go back to square one. It's because even if we come out with the same outcome we came up with last time, it needs to be an outcome that we came as a community. Absolutely.
Sure.
And if that's it, great. Then both times we had it right. And but it needs to be together. And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that and say that in looking for the support from the Board of Selectmen, I think that's one of the things that really needs to be clear, is that we are looking at this as a whole new deal. This is not falling back on the past. This is moving forward with a whole new plan and a whole new idea starting from scratch.
And there may be a little bit more cost involved, but in the same respect, we need to make sure that it's done right. If we have to go through feasibility all over again, there's more cost, but it's something we agree on that we need to do together. And I think that's something we understand, and that's a process we're going to have to go through. And again, it's one that needs to be agreed upon by all.
What do you think of the idea of all the school committee members and all the Board of Selectmen doing a walkthrough, a tour together?
Well, we could definitely do that, but.
Well, do we really need to walk through anymore? Haven't we seen these buildings enough? I mean, I think we know the status of these buildings.
But maybe some don't.
I think there's only one on the Board of Selectmen. I might be wrong, and I don't want to be rude and single somebody out, so I'm not going to say.
I think they've all been on it now.
They have all been
Yep.
through. Okay. So then we're up to date, and they've all been through. I know some of them have been through numerous times. So.
All right. with that, any other discussion on the statement of interest before we as a school committee decide on our piece of the puzzle?
I just want to add my 2 cents. Liz, I know this is daunting, and earlier I think Mr. Pratt said he realizes you probably haven't slept in days. I think it's more like years. And I just want to say thank you again for doing what we asked you. It is certainly a very political and challenging issue, and I think you handle it with grace, and I hope that people find that you're open and approachable and informative. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to put it together. I've been wanting to do this again for a long time, and I do just want to say that this can be the project you want. This doesn't have to be the project that we planned before, but it won't come without cost if we start over, as Lance pointed out. But the most significant thing is you really can't delay it any longer. Whether it takes us a little bit longer to get there because we start over, that's another thing. But we're trying to avoid dropping millions into this building to keep our schools open.
Well, and to Liz's point, I sat in our capital outlay meeting to present to the capital outlay committee the other night, and it's an hour and a half gone by, and we'd only been talking about the middle high school and hadn't even touched base on the elementary school. And I think that's the scary part, is there's a lot of work to be done in our buildings here in town, as we know. Our municipal buildings all need a lot of work, and so to see money go into a building that needs that lot of work is a challenge for us, and I think we're trying to look for the future of our community and help save costs there. So with that, I know we need an official vote on this, and I believe...
To use all that language.
Yes, we have official verbiage that needs to be used. So with that, I'll attend a motion.
I don't have a copy of the language. It's buried in here.
I would like to make a motion that the school committee recommends supporting the statement of interest, the new statement of interest, and having it submitted to the state using the template that they have provided us, because that's a very lengthy.
It was, yes, right here.
The requirements were quite lengthy, so.
Well, I wrote it out. It's completely typed out for you.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
It's 2 full pages.
But we have to read it out loud.
You have to read it out loud.
You have to read the whole thing out loud?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
So he has to read each priority?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to read it?
All right.
Sorry, move to the mic.
I'll take a breath now. So, do I resolved? Start there?
If you'd like for me to read it because I wrote it, I'm happy to read it, and then
No.
you can just take, okay.
Just need to know where to start. So this reads, resolved. Having convened in an open meeting on March 4th, 2013, the Carver School Committee of Carver, Massachusetts, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest dated March 4th, 2013 for the Carver Elementary School located at 85 Main Street, Carver, Mass. 02330, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority category or categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority 1. Replacement or renovation of a building which is structurally unsound or otherwise in a condition seriously jeopardizing the health and safety of school children where no alternative exists. The Carver Elementary School consists of 2 buildings, the Governor John Carver, built in 1951, and the Irwin K. Washburn, built in 1975. All building systems in both buildings have exceeded their useful life. Replacement of building systems will not mitigate health and safety concerns. The open plan Irwin K. Washburn building represents health and safety issues due to the modular exterior wall system that integrates the windows with the walls. There is no emergency exit available through the windows. The windows do not open. The age, excuse me, and condition of the doors in relationship to the foundation present security and safety issues, and the doors are part of the wall system. Pardon me, guys, allergy season here. The open plan of the common areas such as the cafeteria and library media center gives very little security and no fire-rated walls for fire protection. The 25-year-old portable classroom has exceeded its useful life. The Governor John Carver building has structural problems with the doors and stairs that present security and safety issues. The below-grade central gymnasium, which also serves as a hallway, presents safety and barrier-free concerns. The entire building, thank you, Anne Marie, is a safety concern due to lack of barrier-free access due to the structural design of the building. The age and condition of the 62-year-old steam piping for the steam boiler is a constant safety risk. The piping is exterior to interior walls. There have been 3 ruptures of pipes since 2008. No students were in the building at the time. This cannot be mitigated without a structural renovation to the entire building. That's the end of priority 1.
Do you want me to take over?
Can we split it up?
Sure.
Go ahead. Priority 2 is
Priority 2.
Tag.
Elimination of severe overcrowding. There are not enough rooms to provide effective spaces for teaching and learning. The Governor John building has no rooms for reading, special education, speech and language services, OT, PT, music, or art, library, media center, or computer lab. The cafeteria cannot seat enough students. There are 5 lunch periods. The Irwin K. Washburn provides spaces for services described above for all of the students in both buildings. Access to these programs and services is limited due to the lack of space. Every available space is used. High-risk students are receiving services in converted closets, offices, and hallways. The length of time on task for learning is diminished because students must walk outside the Governor John Carver building to access programs housed in the Irwin K. Washburn building. Priority 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. In both buildings, the roof warranty expired in 2009. All rooftop heating and cooling units are experiencing failure rates that are accelerating. The open plan of the Irwin K. Washburn building provides for a low rate of efficiency and strain in these air handling units. The inability to open windows in this building comes at a cost of air conditioning the entire space in moderate weather. The steam boilers in the Governor John Carver are not efficient. The electrical service of 400 amps in the Governor John Carver building does not provide the minimum need for the building, and frequent brownouts and failures are experienced by the students and staff. The univents in this building are 62 years old and ventilation is a problem. All core systems in both buildings are in need of immediate replacement, except for the electrical system in the Irwin K. Washburn building. Priority 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete building in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. Both buildings that compromise the Carver Elementary School lack the required and appropriate space for special education services. The district has been cited in the Department of Education's program review process for lack of adequate space to provide special education services. This cannot be mitigated without total renovation and addition of additional space. It is never appropriate to teach children in closets, offices, or hallways. Currently, all reading and intervention, targeted instruction for at-risk students is provided by grouping at least 2 classes of students in one classroom at all times. Math intervention classes meet in the cafeteria and the library media center. There is not enough electrical service or computer drops to provide students access to computers as a teaching or assessment tool. In 2015, all students will be required to take a simultaneous test. Thanks. Online with an electronic device for mandated state testing. We cannot provide this testing environment due to the lack of infrastructure to support the technology. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that the submitting of the statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, region, school district to filing an application for funding with the School Massachusetts Building Authority.
Thank you to that teamwork. Well done.
Well, it's the crooked letters that kill you.
With that, we have a very
fancy
long
lettering.
motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion, but I'll open it again if there's any other discussion before vote. And with that, we will need to take a roll call vote, so I'll ask each one of you. James?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Kelly? Paula?
Aye.
And myself, that would be aye. It is unanimous. The school committee supports the moving forward of the statement of interest. With that, thank you. With that, before we move on to another subject, first of all, will the selectmen have to go through all that reading as well?
Yeah, they have their own. Jack has it.
Wow, so we'll get to hear that one again.
I'm gonna make a motion, let me cross it out. I think we should make a motion to have Callie.
Well, with that, we do need to, I guess we sort of established the next step for us with the Board of Selectmen is that we'll all meet at their next.
Post a meeting
And we'll
on-
post a meeting for that to take place.
Jack, have you put it on the agenda for March 12th?
I will.
Yeah,
We have to do it Wednesday.
right.
So we will see you then, Jack. Thank you. And we encourage all of us, if we can make a strong showing and a full attendance, that would be great.
Jack, do you want to take the rest of the Board of Selectmen back to?
I'd also like to invite anybody watching tonight that couldn't be here that has questions. Reach out to any one of us in the meantime if you have thoughts or ideas, or come to the Board of Selectmen's meeting on the 12th, because we do value the community input and we do want everybody to be a part of it. So please come on out if you weren't able to be here tonight.
I can email it to you.
Thank you.
I can email it to you.
With that, we will step back to the agenda. And I believe our students are back with us now. And if Liz doesn't mind, and keep them.
Oh, absolutely.
That's all right with you? So we have Captain's Council? All right. With that, we'll welcome up Captain's Council to present.
And democracy, you got to observe in progress. Oh, did it? I will. I was just, that's what I was trying to get your attention.
Hello. My name's Alex. I'm the secretary of Captain's Council. And currently we are looking to do a fundraiser. We're going to do a car wash, but it's going to be a free car wash. Sounds kind of funny because it is a fundraiser. So what we're going to do is get pledges from people to say, like, so they'll bet a nickel or a nickel per car that we can't wash 100 cars or something. So then the day of the car wash, it'll be free, so you don't need to have money on you. You can just come on through, but then we'll have the people that pledged and get money that way.
And I'm guessing you'll accept donations that day as well.
Yeah, maybe. And then also, this is going to be for next year, but we're looking to do kind of integrate community service in the athletics program by doing a team timeout or a team out. And what that's going to be is in the typical 10-week season, there's usually around 60 practices or 60 meetings of that team because most of them meet 6 days a week. And so we're going to ask all teams for just 2 of those meetings to dedicate to community service as a team with the coach, so that every team would be doing 2 community service events. And then some of our other members also have some other things.
Okay, well, I'm Amy, and on March 13th, it's going to be the spring sports sign-up night from 6 to 8 in the middle school lobby, and then officially the high school spring sports start March 18th.
And I'm Dana, and we had 2 All-Stars from basketball, which were Alex Rosen and Trey Peter.
I'm Kevin, and one of the recent events that we had was during the midterms, we held a volleyball tournament for students, and what our prize was that during our Spirit Week pep rally, whichever team won the tournament is now playing a team of faculty during the pep rally. So everyone will be able to know who won, and they get to rep their team.
Were you
Just
on the
can't play
winning
Mr.
team?
Neef now.
I wasn't. Yeah, unfortunately.
He's on IR right now, yes.
Unfortunately, Mr. Neef is out on injury leave, so
Yeah.
he will not be joining us.
You don't think he's faking it just to get out of the game?
I think they won last year.
Maybe he's taking mercy on you.
We appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, guys.
Now, Mr. Neef has told me there's some students here that would like to talk about the need for us to postpone graduation, to move it to a different date due to the snow days. So I would ask that we move it up from the agenda from my recommendations to now, so the students that are here. Is that all right with you all?
Sure.
Yep.
So as way of, Scott, you want to go up there?
Sure.
So way of background is you're allowed to have graduation earlier than the end of school, but you can't exceed 12 school days before the end of school. So by the fact that we had a day for Hurricane Sandy, and unfortunately 3 days for the blizzard, I really wanted to have school on the Friday, but it actually wouldn't have made a difference in this case. But the governor asked us to close. We are in a position where we have more than 12 days between our scheduled date of graduation and, you know, we need to follow the law. Did you want to add anything, Scott?
No, just saying that the proposal would be to move graduation back 1 week. It's scheduled for June 2nd currently, so we'll move back to June 9th. And then the last day, in essence, everything would move back 1 week.
Right.
The last day of seniors would move back a week, and senior exams would move back 1 week. And that actually affects the Memorial Day weekend. So seniors would actually be making up an additional 4 days of school, just like everybody else. So they've missed 4 days, they'd have to make up 4 days. It would also provide us a little bit of leeway if
We have more snow days.
if we had more snow days for some reason. But the regulation is that the last day for graduation cannot be more than 12 school days before the final day of school for all students. And right now, our final day for school for all students, I believe, is set at June 20th. And if we kept graduation where it was at June 2nd, that would be a total of 14 school days.
Is it 12 academic days or 12 calendar days?
12 school days.
School days.
And right now, we'd be at 14 school days.
And the elementary will be at the 21st because they had
They had
an
one
additional
additional
day when we had the nor'easter.
Right.
Because they lost power. So.
How many senior events does this affect?
In essence, it affects all the senior events. Everything would move back 1 week. So class day would move back a week, convocation move back a week.
Is there trips or things like that that had money as far as deposits and things like that that it
No.
affects, or no?
No. The obviously the impact would be on students who have other plans. You know, I know obviously, you know, some people have people coming in from out of state, and they've already made travel plans, they've already booked airline flights, that type of stuff. So, you know, obviously, we looked at this right once we went over the limit, because we didn't know we were going to do that beforehand. The school district has done this at one other time since I've been principal and assistant principal. There was one other year where we had to move
2005,
graduation
yeah.
back.
2005.
So we've done it before. It's, you know, no one's happy about it. I'm not up here because I'm excited about doing it. I think sometimes it's just what it is. And I think particularly the student that's here, and I don't know if his family wants to come up and address. I don't know if you'd want to give him that opportunity to do that. And I think his particular concern is he's scheduled to join military service, and he's actually scheduled to ship out for his assignment that he wants to do before June 9th. So he would actually not be able to participate in graduation. But I will give them the opportunity to speak on their own behalf. Not that I don't want to represent him.
Thank you for allowing us to speak.
Oh, absolutely.
You just introduce yourself. That'd be great.
My name's John Murray. It's Doug Murray, my son. Doug is leaving for the military, and he has a hard date that he's already booked for, which if the original graduation had happened, he would have left that night anyway to go to Boston to fly out the next day. So I don't know if there are other kids in the same boat as far as commitments they've made. I know the kids who are going on to college obviously have all summer long to get where they need to go. But for those kids who are in the delayed entry program that are going to boot camp, he won't have that opportunity. And I know he feels very strongly, as do I and his classmates, that all of these kids obviously have been together their whole entire lives. And this is, for someone their age, this is the biggest moment that they've ever had.
Absolutely.
And, you know, he really doesn't want to miss it. And even from, as a parent, you know, my own son, it's an important event for us as well. So certainly we're one family out of everyone, but there could be others that just haven't, you know, showed up to the meeting or whatever, or have a date that is so close as Doug does.
Sure, and I appreciate you coming and sharing that.
And can I just add on one piece, which you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Doug. I think there's some, in terms of the date that you're leaving, it ties a little bit specifically to what you want to do as a specialty.
Special training.
So if you change that, because some people may think, oh, you could change that
Sign up
date.
whenever, sure.
But if you change that date, that might affect your specialty a little bit. So I don't know
Special
if that's
training.
part of it as well.
Well, and it sounds to me that this is a case of law. Clearly, this is a special situation. We just deal with a state of emergency. Has the government given exceptions for times like this? I mean, I'm guessing other districts are in the same situation.
Is it possible for us to have the ceremony on the exact same day and just hand out empty diplomas? And then get the diploma at a later point in time?
Both Lance and I have to certify at graduation that every senior has met all of the grade requirements and attendance requirements.
Which they would have done by that day anyway. They're not even in school.
Right.
The seniors have already graduated at this point in time.
No, I mean, what we're saying is they have to go one more week.
Right.
So that we would have to say that they met all the requirements, and they do go that last week before graduation. They show up for practices, they do all kinds of things, Scott.
The intention of the rule, of why the regulation's in place from the DESC, is that so that school districts don't, in essence, say, the seniors are done in May, so why don't, our school district has decided that the last day of school for seniors is going to be the first week in May. In essence, the state requires 180 days of attendance for all students. And I don't know why it's worded this way. I don't know the history and background of it. I don't know why they've chosen this arbitrary 12 days before the final day of school for all students. It kind of seems to be a weird way to word it. You know, they should just say 165 days for seniors. You know what I mean? Like they do for everybody else. But the reality is their goal there is to establish a number of days that seniors have to be in school to ensure that school districts don't allow their seniors out too early, in essence. So that's the point of the regulation. I don't know the background and the history of, like I said, I think the wording of it's funny. That I think it should just be more straightforward.
It came around.
Seniors have to attend 165 days.
It came around in 1993 with ed reform when we got the 990 hours.
Do we have to do April vacation? Have to?
There are as many reasons people will come to us about April vacation and trips to everywhere that there will be here.
I think your response would be
And I need to, I don't have it in front of me, but I've been dealing with it in my work life, and I know the principal, they've been looking at it from the original day of the last day of school versus the new day of school. And do we have the exact verbiage? Because I know that's one of the things they were looking at is 12 days from your original scheduled day, and even if you got bumped, you could still have graduation from 12 days from your original.
That's not the way the law.
That's not the way the law goes.
I mean, I've asked our attorney, we're supposed to have them in school, you know.
Saturdays? I mean, there's got to be something. I mean, it's like his one. I don't want to cause any waves here, but
And the consequence for that is they don't validate the graduation?
It's possible. If we became a high-profile news story.
Would it be, I hate to ask this question because the state, we know how fast they move on things, but, I mean, can we submit a letter asking for a one-time exception for our district from the
waiver?
emergency, or?
Well,
I mean, is there-
Fitchburg last year and the year before had, I can't even tell you how many days they were out with the ice storms. They forgave them nothing because they still had vacation weeks and the date, you can't go beyond June 30th. the commissioners already issued us a letter that there will be no forgiveness for these days because we have plenty of days to plan ahead. Could we reroute April vacation? Yes, we can. But that's also a problem for our teachers who have things that they've scheduled to do and they weren't expecting to work. And if we were at a point where we were going to go past June 30th and we had to make those up, you know, it's very tough. I mean, we're not the only school district facing this. Literally everyone in the state's facing it, and some a little bit more difficult than others because they missed other days from other storms. My advice to the school committee is that that we need to follow the regulation in order not to put the whole graduation in
What about
jeopardy.
just 2 days out of the vacation or something? Like really try and think out of the box here.
Hi, yes,
That's
Mr.
not gonna
Murray.
alter anything for his case.
Just, I know at a point, it's, the machine is bigger than the man, and I understand all that, and I don't advocate that, you know, people cancel their trips to Aruba during April vacation. So at the very least, whether for logistic or legal reasons you decide that you have to honor that date change, at the very least, I would ask that we find a way somehow in a public school forum that he could at least be recognized in front of his peers in some way.
I would be more than willing to grant him his diploma. Trying to think of the timing. At
at
an
the
event prior.
convocation or?
Well, those were all
That's
the
that last
graduation
week,
week is
too.
still afterwards. Class day is actually going to be afterwards. Class day is going to be the next day, the 3rd.
We could
Unless-
do the senior assembly.
Unless I
early.
unless I looked at doing signing them, I have to look at something of publicly granting his diploma beforehand.
I mean, we don't
I
want
don't
you to
know if
miss
that's
any
something-
of your opportunities.
No, I know that.
I mean, I'm just stuck between a rock and a hard place. And
No, I understand your position,
Yeah.
and I completely, I understand
Well,
what
and
you're
I
up against.
think at this point, it will continue to exhaust all legal ramifications and know that our decision will be based on whatever loopholes we can get around to support your son. Because we do feel it's important. I won't speak on behalf of each one of my committee members, but I do, we value your experience, your years with us, and we want to make sure you're supported and rewarded for that, absolutely.
That's all we can ask.
I think, though, because people have made plans, that we need to go ahead and set a date for graduation so that people can, those people whose grandparents are coming, et cetera, can, you know.
And I've spoken to the seniors about this. They're aware of it. They realize it's being discussed at the meeting this evening. So all the students knew that this was going to be discussed this evening, and I really said to them in essence that we'll give them give them some finality. You know, I'd write a letter to all the parents of the seniors saying these are all the new dates. And I would put that out to people this week so that everybody would have those dates this week.
We're a little, believe it or not, a little lucky because we started before any other school system, well, except for Plymouth. They always hang with us. No, they didn't start. No, okay. And on the South Shore, so we do have a few days. Doesn't help you, but we have, you know, a lot of people have been pushed to the very next weekend. So, which I know doesn't help your situation, but.
Can we do the 2 days during April vacation? I mean, that would be, if people had vacations, there would be 2 absences, which is not an excused absence, but they'd have to make that
Unfortunately, Kelly, I don't
decision.
think it helps the situation because he was
I
going to be
think
leaving that night. So
Well, no, if we had 2 more days of school, then we would be within the
would put us
12-day
within the 12.
requirement, and then graduation could be
My
on June
apologies.
2nd.
And that's assuming that we don't miss any days from this point forward.
But that would
That's
be a
assuming
good-
we didn't miss any days from this point forward.
Right.
We'll just
Many
list
more
them.
superstorms that seem to be coming our way. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that I just would have the same concern that if you made that decision tonight, at your next meeting, you'd have 50 parents.
I don't think I could staff the school. You know, with people, it's not even really people have travel plans, but most of our teachers have children.
Daycare plan.
And all their schools are off. And I just don't, I think it would be a real problem in staffing the school during a vacation week. If we were at the end, I've done this before, so I know, if we were at the end of June, then, you know,
They let it go.
well, I'd hire the Y and we'd have babysitting for the teacher's children or something, you know, but it's, you know, they just don't forgive it. We have a history of absolutely no exceptions. I think the only one that got an exception is the school that the roof caved in last winter, and they got 1 day. So they're just holding fast to this 990, 180.
If I could work on a solution that had Doug receive his diploma in front of an audience of people, including the senior class, is that something that the committee would feel comfortable with? And I think, Mr. Murray, you've said you'd feel comfortable with that. It's not the same as graduation.
No, I mean, I think given everything that's taking place, I'll take what I can get.
Right, I mean, I would not feel that uncomfortable maybe looking at the schedule, and maybe we could do something to have even class day the Friday before you left. You know, class, in my mind, the schedule that I was creating, class day would be the Monday after you left, which doesn't help you, obviously, because it's the next Monday. But maybe we could have
the Friday before you leave.
Class day the Friday before. And then I could work that out.
I believe, looking by our committee, do we have that?
I would wholeheartedly support that. I feel sad and annoyed and frustrated for you. Thank you for what you're going to do, and congratulations. I will be at anything that Mr. Neef has if you guys want me as a school committee member to be there to help lend my support and congratulate and cheer you on.
James.
I just actually want to state for the record that I think this is another sad example of the state's inability to really address situations accurately. When you have a student who's worked hard and who's willing to dedicate his future to something that benefits this country, and that there's no flexibility at all there is a very sad state. And I would also like to say thank you for what you're about to do, and apologize for the inability for us to be able to support that and make it what it should be for you, man. So I wish you the best of luck, and I hope we can do something that will probably never equal what you're looking for, but be something that's memorable in that sense anyway.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you both.
So we will have graduation on June 9th.
Does that need a motion, or is that just?
Actually, Scott and I usually set graduation, but in this case, I wanted you all to have a whole big part of it.
Okay.
And we will do something to recognize.
We'll do, yeah, we'll recognize Doug and receive his diploma in a public setting before June 2nd.
And are we aware of any other families that may be facing something similar, just so nobody's feeling left out or
The only other thing that's come to me, I've had some, and this, I've addressed the entire senior class. So my assumption would be that someone would come forward. You know, Doug came forward right away, and actually other members of the class came forward in Doug's behalf right away. So, you know, I was aware of the situation pretty quickly. Other students have come forward just asking, please, let's set the date because I have family coming in from out of town. So the only other concern I've heard, and from a handful of students, probably 4 or 5, who've said that I do have family who's coming from different parts of the country, and they just need to maybe make some change their travel arrangements to make the June 9th date.
I'm not comfortable with this decision, but I don't know what else to say except I know that I'm going out on a limb, and I know it's hard, and I know that you have to make these decisions and you have to do what you have to do, but I just have to state that I just don't feel comfortable. I feel like this child has gone through his whole life with these, this is his one big day. And he's going to go on and fight for the country, and we're going to, I know that there may not be room for making it work, but I just have to say that I'm not comfortable, and I'm sorry, I just have to say it.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sorry.
Is there, I don't want to belabor this, I know we have to keep an eye on the time, but, I mean, is there anything that his family or we can do to, like, lobby Susan Williams Gifford or somebody to
In
get?
my mind, the solution is for the district to make a determination, and maybe I'm overstepping my bounds in saying this, so Liz could disagree with me, but in my mind, it would be the committee to make a solution that we're not going to follow that regulation and take whatever consequence comes with that, which may just be some sort of a reprimand, and just say it would not be to It would not be to impact, I believe the change, to making a decision to go to April vacation or add Saturdays, that's gonna impact a wide range
Greater
of people.
number,
And I can, honestly, I don't know if I could be supportive of, it's always making that hard choice of how many people, who do you impact and who does the impact become? So I think the
Well,
decision would really be to not follow the regulation and just keep the schedule as it is.
I think Mr. Neef's kind of thrown down the gauntlet to us. We've got two choices. As we said, I think any other decision based on taking away other days of school, whether you're going to school on Saturday or school vacation, does have the greater impact on parents versus the small amount of families that moving graduation could have. So now, do we take the chance and like you said,
You also establish a precedent.
Right. And
that
again,
other
we
people
would be
ask
that
you to follow at future years.
we would be that town that you're going to see on the news and say, we're drawing a line, we want to support our students.
I would be proud to stand up and defend that statement.
Absolutely, I would too.
Well,
Under
then,
this particular instance, I would be proud to stand up
Sure.
and say, we intentionally did it, and this is why.
and just so we have a clear,
And yes, it's for one person.
just so I have a clear understanding, this potentially could jeopardize the
Graduation of everybody in the class.
That's
The graduation
my
Well, I need more
question and
details
concern
on that
way.
aspect. It's not right.
Well, no, I think we're all in.
He
I
deserves
think
a fight.
I agree, and I think we're all in
I'll fight
agreement.
for
We
it.
want to support our students, and this is one area that it is worth drawing the line. But again, we need to think on behalf of our entire community and our entire student body. And if we jeopardize the diplomas of all of our graduating seniors, then that's something that we also have to think about.
Diplomas are one thing, but vacations for people are another, in my eyes. And I know that I'm going off and speaking probably too broad,
Well,
but in
this
my
committee
eyes,
is always open to a motion.
you know?
Emotion or a motion?
I think we'd be dull without it. Yes.
Would you like for Rebecca to prepare a legal opinion for you on this? Because I think when you vote on something you may not know all the consequences of, that might not, this could end up costing a lot of money as well.
I don't
So-
want it to cost a lot of money. I just want to exhaust all of our
Right,
ideas
so-
to make sure we're really looking.
And if you're going to have a quorum of all of you next Tuesday at the,
Yes.
at the,
We could potentially make that
you could make that choice and I could
without
get,
delaying the process of.
Yeah,
letting
because I do
families
think that we have to, I think it would be unfair, I think it would be unfair to a lot of people to hold that decision until the April meeting.
Right, because we're talking a very short time frame here for families to make that decision.
Right.
So I hope
Those who are
wholeheartedly
making travel
agree.
plans, and those are all impacts and they're monetary, but the reality is it's.
and then there is a difference between Rebecca's legal opinion and what the Department of Education's legal department would say. So there's pros and cons of that. If I ask the Department of Education for their legal opinion on this, then it heads up, we might be breaking it, and heads up, they might, I'm just trying to give you all the
I think I'm getting
information.
a sense that it doesn't really matter from our standpoint. We want them to know if that's the stance we're taking.
I just want you to know, I mean, I'm happy to go forward and ask all these and get it in writing. They're happy to give it to us in writing. I just think that you should know what you're committing the district to doing before you do it, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those times as elected officials, we hold a lot of weight on our shoulders, and this is one of those decisions that I know I personally would like all the background before I make a decision on. We do have a sort of built-in time frame now with a week of reconvening. I'm open to any movement or
So
whatever
could you
we-
get together at 6:30 on Tuesday?
Could we gather half an hour before the selectmen's meeting
Or even 6:45, but
to have a decision on this topic?
And we'll have the information before that?
I'll get it to you.
And I don't know if it will be beneficial if I reach out to the MSSC, the school committee, Glenn and.
MASC.
They don't make any of the
If they
rules,
won't
but
help
you,
with this process.
I mean, they might tell you what their interpretation is, but they aren't an enforcer or a rule maker in this. But it's good to ask them always.
Sure. All right, so with that being said, we'll wait for the information and make a decision. So I guess we need a motion to,
No, we don't have to.
No motion.
No motions, because we're not
we're
deciding
not tabling anything, really.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for all's input, and we will,
And I will, I will let the senior class know that a decision will be coming next Tuesday. The final decision will be coming next Tuesday,
We
March 12th.
do have to decide next Tuesday.
Can you be sure to let them know that, I personally, if you guys disagree, please speak up, but I'm sorry to delay the date, but it's not something that I think we should be taking lightly, and I hope they understand.
They're going to have the majority of seniors are going to have a positive response because they're going to say, there's a chance we're going to stay with June 2nd, which would make them very happy. There are not going to be a lot of people who are concerned about this decision, including those seniors who stayed to listen to the discussion.
All right, well, thank you all for your input there. Liz, I guess we'll get back to the agenda.
Yeah,
Well, the students are asking, well, all meetings are public, so if the school committee meets, it's public.
Yes, it is a public
It's an
meeting.
open meeting.
Is that here?
Place will need to be posted. Yes.
then we should meet 6:30 here. It gives us time to go there. We're going to the Board of Selectmen meeting at 7, so.
Just carry that meeting over to them.
Yeah, well, we will adjourn this one and go reconvene on there.
Liz, is there any chance that we could just use one of the meeting rooms at the town hall and meet there?
If we want it to be public, I'm afraid there won't be enough room for, those meeting rooms are really little.
Okay.
The most
Yep.
I've ever seen is 10 or so in that room.
Well, I know the one downstairs has a pretty decent seating space. It can seat probably as many as this, yeah.
Well, I'll check. Maybe I've just never been in that one.
Yeah, we used to meet downstairs. It's quite a bit of seating, but
All right,
a little more if not the same.
I'll check on it, and if it's available, sometimes the committees are meeting simultaneously.
Mhm.
But if it's available, we could look to meeting there, and Scott can get it out to the public, so.
Thank you, James. All right, I believe we are back to safety and security recommendations.
Yes, Patrick and I, the chief of police, Mike Mix, and Dave Seidentoff went to a conference. Well, they call them when they bring us all in at last minute drive-ins. So we went to a drive-in sponsored by the Mass Business officials and the school superintendents. And basically it was to update us after the Newtown, Connecticut on all the different organizations that are available to us as we begin to examine our own school security and safety issues. It was really quite informative. It did help us make some immediate plans, and Mike Mix has been wonderful in working with both principals and scheduling lockdown drills and going forward how we will revise our plan from what it was, because we found out that, what we know now, they learned from each one of these horrific events, helps to keep us more in tune with what we should be doing. So I just wanted to update you that we had been to this event. We found it very useful, and we will continue to revise our safety and plan as we go. And at some point when we have a final product of our revised plan, we'll bring it to the committee. But I just wanted to tell you that we were trying to keep up with all this. There is new legislation going to be drafted regarding school safety and security, and we're waiting to see what that will look like. We're hoping that coming with that will be some dollars that will help schools more than likely update your security systems, is what they were talking about, like cameras, et cetera. We did have a subcommittee of what we can do with the fire department, police department, emergency management, Pat and I, on what we could do right immediately, and I have made those immediate changes. So then we go on to budget, unless there are any questions about safety and security.
Security questions from the committee?
So I'll just like to remind you, we didn't get to talk about this in February because we didn't have a meeting. So this is still where we're just explaining the different parts of the budget, and we'll come with the final budget presentation in April. Just a little bit off of our usual March schedule, but there's no hurry because the town doesn't vote it till town meeting. So we'll probably do school committee and board of selectmen in April. So Patrick, it's yours.
Okay. Meredith is going to be
nice enough to put up the piece in the agenda that's in your books. And again, what I want to say is I'm not going to go into great detail about this. The numbers that you see on this page, particularly the ones that I'm going to talk about right now, are subject to be changing quite a bit as we get more accurate information as we go. Right now, we've had limited talks with the town. I don't mean that in the negative way. That we're all waiting for the most accurate information that we can. We did get some Chapter 70 numbers that came out of the Governor 1 budget, and we got a basic minimum $25 per pupil potential increase in Chapter 70, which was only $44,000. But as the governor's budget has not been approved yet, and there are some issues that are certainly going to cause a lot of conversation in the governor's budget. So what we want to do is, as we typically do, we start off with what we'll call a level service budget. These will have no adjustments in it, to the fact that it won't be offset by circuit breaker school choice. In the past, we've had significant amounts of money, well into six figures, to offset our health insurance cost by what was called the Ed Jobs bill. And we got 3 years of support out of that. That's now over. So we're back to not having that supplement. So we've only got circuit breaker and school choice to go by. But what you'll see up here is I want to concentrate really on two areas: the central office and salaries. You'll see other things like transportation, and again, that's a non-salary part of transportation. Went down a little bit. We just reduced the number of driver physicals that we thought we were going to have. Special education, whom you heard from a couple of meetings ago, you'll see they went up by 33,000. However, the point I'd like to make there is that's an unadjusted number, and I think from the presentation that you had by Karen Tykert, our SPED director, you can see that she's just done a tremendous amount of work in her budget, in how she's providing services, in trying to get students back in the district, to give them levels of services that we can do here to be as good or better than out in the more expensive placements. And she literally has done a fantastic job. And again, that's an unadjusted number. Our custodial maintenance, we're keeping those numbers the same. We'll manage with what we have. We've got some extraordinary maintenance money in there that we always utilize. Our technology, again, is just a very, very slight increase. Our elementary school, and as our high school, is a very slight increase. Right after this, you'll be hearing from Mike Schultz, our athletic director, and he'll give a little bit more detailed presentation on his. And then we have the salaries. So what I'd like to speak to is we've got about a $576,000 increase in the central office. And again, these numbers are going to change as we find out what our adjustments are going to be. This is an unadjusted. We've got a $1.2 million increase over level service increase over our current budget. We don't know what our budget figure is going to be for the FY14 year. We do have to get into more talks and meetings with the town officials. But out of the $576,000, about $405,000 of that is a health insurance increase. Now that's based on two things. That's based on using a 10% increase, and it's also based on putting back the amount of money that we had from Ed to offset it by Ed Jobs last year. So that's $150,000 that we're not going to have, that I had to add back in. and there's a 10% increase. Now, the good news is we know it's not going to be a 10% increase. It's going to be down in the lower single numbers or maybe even better. And we're getting that news and that type of information as we're meeting with our health insurance group. We've got another meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and we may be able to set some rates at that time. So the good news about that is it's not going to be 10%. The county retirement.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, just so we're clear, because I know when you look at these numbers, you see two big line items that jump out at you, one being that line item. And so if my understanding is correct, really it's not a jump. What it is funding that we had at a different source is now gone. So we're filling that gap, and then there's an increase in
Right.
insurance costs. And so really it's
Right.
not that salaries are going up, it's those gaps are being now coming to light because of that situation.
Right, that's a piece of it, yeah.
Okay.
The county retirement, which is, that's just an estimate. That's been going up significantly in the past few years. It is what it is. They tell us what it is. This is an estimate. I'm hoping it doesn't go up 10%, but we haven't got that specific figure from the county as yet. That should be coming pretty soon. So when we get that in, when we get the real figure, we will adjust for that. The retiree health insurance, again, using 10%, it'll go right along with our other insurance, but at the same time, we are going to have a few more retirees before. So we're going to move some costs out of the regular health insurance. We're going to move that into the retiree insurance, and then we have to make up, as we hire new people to replace the retirees. Usually, most of them come in with a health insurance plan too. So again, those numbers will be adjusted. I adjusted a little bit for a vocational school tuition because I don't think we have enough in there to handle what we have and what we expect.
This is beyond Old Colony. This is the agricultural schools and the schools where children go because they can't get a program at Old Colony. They go to another vocational school. Old Colony is paid by the town. So this is above and beyond.
Yeah, and we've got 9 that we send out to the two Aggie schools, and I think we've only got a couple of seniors, and I think we've got at least 3, if not more, applications.
I gave you one today.
Okay, there's another one. So that means about 4. It doesn't mean they're going to go. It means they put the application in. So I put one more tuition in there. It's about $18,000 a piece to send them, plus transportation.
And this is all central office expenses. We're still in that same category.
Yep. We've got.
Not paper clips, though.
I put municipal insurance up a little bit because I'm pretty sure our rates are going to go up because of our lightning strike that we had about 1.5 years ago. That was.
It's only 2 systems that cost them. Come on.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It was ended up bumping up to about almost $200,000 by the time we got everything done and accounted for. So I'm just anticipating that our rates might go up a little bit for that. And then the final $6,000 was just spread over many accounts. One of the things that I want to say too, within the central office, we've also got utility accounts. Utility accounts is something that I typically don't change very often unless we know we're getting a change in the actual rate. I did that last year or the year before because we did renegotiate a couple of contracts. We got a little bit better deal. But that's a funny thing. I mean, you have a good year and you're going to have a surplus. You have a bad year or where it gets cold or hot if you have to use air conditioning, and we're going to use a lot more utilities. It's a tough one to try to anticipate or to try to estimate, but the numbers that we have in there have served us well, so I didn't touch them at all. And again, health insurance and retirement are going to be 2 that could bring that $576,000 number down quite a bit. So that is a little summary of the central office. Does anybody have any questions on those? Okay, so now we'll look at the salaries. That's about $586,000, so each takes up about half of this. District-wide, 1.5% cost of living. Column changes and so forth is about $263,000. We've got $155,000 in step increases. Very unusual. We had 7 staff members go from step 9 to 10. And you know what kind of a jump that is. That's the big one. We brought 2 teachers back who this current year were on a maternity leave that we did not replace. We had 2 teachers who had a leave of who were out on a leave of absence that we did replace with subs, and they're coming back, so we had to adjust for their salaries. We adjusted some for some additional hours of driving and guidance adjustments, and then we had a couple thousand that were spread over many, many accounts.
I'd just like to say one thing about the salaries is the the teachers who were out on maternity leave who are going to come back. Last year we were able to just make it without those 2 teachers because we had a smaller class coming from 5th grade to 6th grade, but this year we have a very big class going from 5th to 6th. They have 27 in each homeroom, which is big for 5th grade. So this year we needed to bring those teachers back that were on maternity leave and not eliminate any others because we really need them to be able to teach the English and math that we did without last year. So we were able to absorb a cut of 5 teachers at the high school last year because of the lower class size for the 5th grade and graduating a smaller class too. So we're going to have a few more kids than we've had at the high school.
So that figure is not an estimation?
This is pretty solid. Unless some more people retire. When people retire, we don't usually hire somebody with 30 years experience, so, and we have gotten 2 more retirement letters even since I put that in there, so there could be some opportunity for some savings there with hiring at a different level, but those are unknown at this point, so.
And even though we may have some known retirements in hand, those still have not been adjusted in the figures you're looking at right now.
The ones that are in this book have not been
They
included?
have not been adjusted. So, those are gains that we know we can make. But
We know we can lower this cost.
Yeah, this is typically, though, the way we do it. We start off with a pure unadjusted, and then we back it down from there so you can see where we did it and how we did it. And then the final is obviously the special ed area, which only went up by $30,000, but that's not adjusted either. But if you look at the adjustments from the FY13 budget, we had almost $720,000 worth of adjustments. Unfortunately, we're not going to have any chance of an Ed Jobs bill adjustment because we've used that all. We had upwards of about $650,000 in an Ed Jobs grant that we were able to actually get benefit out of 3 fiscal years. So that was a nice amount to have in hand, and I really think we used it well. We got 3 years benefit out of it. Circuit breaker, as you see from last year.
And it definitely saved jobs, which was the whole point of it.
Unfortunately, now this exhausts that.
Yeah. It's done.
This year it's over.
Right. Just want to point that out because next year to maintain, we're going to have to make that up.
Well, I already added that back in.
Oh.
That's why the we're under the health insurance and what by 405.
Okay.
150 of that is the Ed Jobs that we're not having.
Thank you.
You'll see that circuit breaker was about $500,000, and again that has not been adjusted. So again, to go back to the way Karen has been working with the department is her current budget is the same as last year's adjusted budget, and that was adjusted by $500,000. So she has been really working hard to do that, and also providing as good or better levels of service to those students that need it, and keeping that in-house instead of outside.
Just as a refresher, circuit breaker comes about when you spend on a single child over 4 times the calculated cost per student.
Yeah, that's about, it's almost $40,000
Yeah,
now.
so when you have to spend more than $40,000 on the tuition for a child, then circuit breaker kicks in. Now, it's not always 100% of what you're supposed to have, but we've been reducing cost in 2 ways. Karen's been bringing back students who were in out-of-district placements and developing programs in the school, which the parents and the students and the schools are very happy with. And so that reduces the number of tuitions we're paying, and then the ones we have are really students that we could not serve, and they are very expensive, so most of them are reduced by circuit breakers. So we will have another large number from circuit breaker for helping to offset this cost up here, the central office.
But at least we get something back from circuit breaker. So you've got to spend 40 for it to kick in, and then your rate of reimbursement from the state can go for, I've seen it as low as 42 and as high as 75. We're up in the 70s with it right now. But at the same time, while it's nice to have, it would be, it's like spending 10 to get 4 back. So.
And you don't get it in the same year.
Right. And if our circuit breaker was 0, we'd be happy, because that would mean we wouldn't be spending that level on any individual student. And it's very, very tough. When you have kids in in-house programs, it's very, very tough to reach that $40,000 level.
Well, or even in our collaboratives.
Or even in the collaboratives, right?
Yeah, because they're mostly way under that. The other thing you have to be careful of is, this is what we know now, but it's a very volatile population. People move into the community, move out, so it's a movable number.
And the other areas of which we're going to get some relief are going to be school choice, which is going to be somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000, and also our retirements. So we've got the potential of some increased state aid. We know that health insurance costs, from what they're estimated here, are going to go down. Maybe the retirement will go down. We've got circuit breaker, we've got school choice. And hopefully putting all those together are going to bring us down close to where we are now.
So any Chapter 70 increases affects FY14?
Yes.
I know Chapter 70 just came out with some new numbers, and we saw a bump.
Right.
That would affect these numbers here?
It would reduce this number by 44,000, because we were going to get 44,000.
We saw a small bump, but that means the governor's budget has to get passed too.
Correct.
And that's a whole nother story.
But the bigger numbers over here, we're going to, with changes in our health insurance, with teacher retirements, and the circuit breaker and school choice, because the children can come for the rest of their education, the limited number we've allowed in, then I think we're gonna see an increase in the offset, So we're going to greatly decrease this increased number of 1.191. But it's always, we don't know until really very close to the end of April, the exact number. That's why we always vote the number in June, is because then you have to go back and re-vote your numbers. And we've always gone on the fact that everybody work on it, and then when we have our final numbers, we'll vote it.
So we'll continue to work on this, and because I know the health insurance numbers are going to be set maybe in March, but it's certainly in April. We'll know more about the governor's budget. We'll know more about retirees as we get closer. And so as we do, we'll share that information.
And Mike's going to tell us about athletics. He's going to save us a lot of money.
Good evening. One thing you don't have in your packet is this handout I'm passing around.
Mike's budget packet came to you in February school committee.
So if you go to the cover page, which is this page here, summarizes the budget. One of the things I like to try to do is add some maybe justification to each one of these line items. You will see that some of these line items are sort of one hits in terms of athletic insurance. Unfortunately, our uniform, not a uniform replacement, but our additional equipment line item tends to get wiped out pretty quickly because of our football reconditioning. And as you go through the packet, the second page in is we are required by MIAA to report our participation figures each year to the state by grade level. And one of the things we like to do at the end of each year is create a cost per pupil analysis sheet so we can see really exactly what each sport is costing us in terms of equipment, coaches' salaries, dues and memberships, etc. So that's the sheet that I just gave you. The ones that are highlighted in the orange are currently teams in which we co-op with other towns. We co-op with Sacred Heart for gymnastics, and we are now co-oping with wrestling, with Wareham with wrestling and ice hockey. Those numbers change quite a bit because it's based on that we've agreed on a cost per pupil sort of participation. Unfortunately, gymnastics and wrestling only had one participant from the other schools to sort of offset our cost a little bit. But usually on a good year, we can run a program for half the cost by co-oping. And it increases our participation numbers. So as you go through the packet, there is just some sort of breakdowns, usually by season, in terms of drivers' salaries, officials, and so forth. You know, what changes to the budget depends on the teams we field. So if we've got freshmen, some of our sports now have JV and freshman teams, so it's going to increase the number of bus trips we're taking. It's going to increase the number of officials we're using. It's obviously going to increase our expenses. But as you go through the packet, you can see that our official fees are fixed by the MIAA. Those are fees in which we cannot alter, so we're required to pay those fees, and those do typically go up by $1 or $2 each year. We do rent vans on occasion, mostly our tennis team, sometimes our track team, and our golf team will rent vans. And that's the contractual services line item. Our sports insurance is an additional accident insurance. That's a one-time hit to the budget. We are required by, I'm going fast, I'm sorry, but we're required by the state MIA mandate to make sure that our coaches are MIA coach certified, and the coaches course costs $95 for our coaches, and we do budget 5 of those trainings. There's some information, additional information inside the packet about what we're required to do. We've got a fairly small supply budget for the office, which is typically taken up by our paper and stuff for handouts and so forth. We've got general field maintenance. A lot of it is just basically paint, field paint, and any additional stuff needed to maintain the baseball, softball fields. Our medical supplies are, there's a typo. Our medical supplies are listed by season. A lot of people ask this question about uniform replacement and how we, it always seems that my team never gets a new uniform, but we do have a spreadsheet, and we do try to spread it out so that, pretty much every 5 or 6 years we're looking at new uniforms for teams. So there's a breakdown of how we do that. It's not just picking randomly who gets a new uniform. And we do work with a lot of vendors who are very cautious to our needs, and we are right now in the middle of trying to get new track uniforms, which are pretty weak and weathered. They're probably 10 years old. And our vendors are really working with us in terms of making payments on this stuff. So it's working out pretty well for us. We are required, MIA, to pay our membership fee, and we belong to the South Shore League, which is a $4,000 a year expense for us. There's a breakdown of, we just broke it down by.
What do they do for us, Mike? They give us schedules and.
South Shore League?
And refs for the tournament game?
Yeah, what do you gain for your 4,000?
You are part of, no, the MIA is a membership fee. It's different than the South Shore League. South Shore League is you're in a league or a conference in which you are scheduling with these teams, and it gives you legitimacy for tournament play and so forth. So there's not many teams or schools in the state that aren't associated with a league of some sort. It's really how you get your tournament bids to the playoffs and so forth. You can see football reconditioning. Some years it's $3,500. Some years it's as much as $6,000. One of the things that's happening to us with the football is that a lot of the helmets are no longer concussion rated, so they're rejecting helmets. Each year we have to send out our shoulder pads and helmets and so forth, and they have to get approved, and they go through this process. And we're getting a lot more rejected shoulder pads and helmets, which is costing us, $200-300 a helmet now.
And clearly, that's all tied into a lot of the concussion stuff now, and making sure we have adequate equipment for these students.
Yep, and we are, as we're replacing these helmets, we're getting the top of the line helmets. And a lot of times we got to find the kid who's had a concussion already that's getting these type of helmets.
What's the life expectancy of a newer helmet?
Honestly, I'd say 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
The technology's changing quite a bit on them, so they're getting better and better. I'm getting email alerts about these helmets that are pressurized and so forth. So I think that over the next couple of years, they're going to keep changing. And, we'll stay on it. We'll try to get the best helmets we can for the price. I mean, you can buy a helmet for $250. You can buy a helmet for $500. I mean, they're expensive. Yeah, airbags. And then there's some other supplemental stuff in the back. It's really basically we try to do some facility 5-year planning, technology planning, so that we're not in a situation where, everything needs to be replaced at once. So it's a little bit of a foreshadowing to the future and things that we've already got and things we're trying to get to upgrade our technology, our facility, our gyms and so forth.
So just that last little bit that you show, that's something, these projects are stuff you take out of your budget directly versus what you would present for a capital outlay project?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there are some big capital outlay projects in there.
Yeah. Like the new track and things like
Yeah,
that.
but the little ones are things we're trying to do, in-house, storage units for the field to make sure our equipment stays dry and clean. Speakers and stuff like that. Painting the gym, we get lucky and we work with MCI Plymouth, and we have some of the guys over there come over and paint for us. We supply the paint. We're going to paint the middle school gym this year. They did the high school gym a few years ago. They did the press box. So, projects like that and some of the stuff in our 5-year plan, we try to have the Booster Club help us with, offset our costs a little bit.
Nice job, Mike.
Any questions from our group here? I'd have to say it's a most thorough and athletic report I've ever seen. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great job.
Great, thank you.
Facilities update, Mr. Mahar.
All right. Okay. Actually, our facilities issues were not extensive, but I do have an interesting information to pass along. We, over at the elementary school in the back building, we had a couple of issues, and I think the superintendent has already mentioned one of them earlier with the excessive heat in one of the pods. So that was pod 1, the rooftop unit. We had in pod 2 had a mechanical problem with no heat. So we had one pod that was cold and one pod that was like a sauna.
So we opened the doors.
So the pod 2 was just a simple service call, a couple hours, got it back up and going. Pod 1 still isn't back going yet, although it's not much of a fortunately, it's not too much of an inconvenience. If we need to, we can run it manually, and we can turn it on and let it run an hour and turn it off, or let it run an hour and turn it off. It is on its way to being repaired, but I just want to give you the latest email, which we got about 4 o'clock this afternoon. They're looking for a controller that needs to be replaced, Pod 1, Unit 6, and the supplier said we currently have one in stock. List price $3,610. Your list price less 50%, $1,956 with an estimate 4-hour installation at $120 an hour. So we're talking $2,700. However, the final sentence is, please remind everyone that these controllers are obsolete and are very difficult to find.
Number 6 is the original to the building.
So take the 3 of 8 and make that 2 of 8 left that we haven't touched.
Yeah, so that one will be fixed within the next day or two, but it's, I just thought that was interesting, and.
So just to reassure the public, when we say it's not operable, the heat is sufficient for students right now?
Yes, it is. It is. Okay. And it'll be fixed within the next day or two. But again, I just like their closing the sentence saying, please remind everybody that these controllers are obsolete, very, very difficult to find. And that's just one part in there, and there's several parts in there that the same explanation could be given to. And about the only other thing was happening was a faulty gas valve head on one of the boilers up at the high school, middle school, and that was about $1,000 fix. So not too bad over the last couple of months. So.
And we had a week off. So
yeah, I was going to say we relatively, building-wise, structure-wise, survived the storm fairly well.
We did. We didn't have to worry about the snow on the roofs. It didn't accumulate that much. And we were, obviously, the biggest thing was certainly the power outages.
it blew so hard that it just blew right off,
Yeah.
which was wonderful. So we didn't have to shovel the roofs. Thank you, Pat. Then we're skipping mobilizing the community, which is wonderful, organizing to the community to send a single message about substance abuse. And Pat, we're going to talk about it in April, but in the interest of time, I had to put it off for this meeting. Lance and I went to the Midwinter, Massachusetts School Committee, School Superintendent's Conference, and thought we'd just update you on.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's always great to see what the rest of the districts are up to. And we had the opportunity to hear from the Secretary of Education as well as the Commissioner. So lots of firepower there from the state, and it was good to hear the focus of funding, at least from this new budget, is to really support districts with kind of the lower end pre-K and potentially 4-year-old development education. So the potential dollars that could come in and the ability now where we have a full day kindergarten already and potential growth there. We heard that from the Secretary and his commitment. Also, the new Secretary is the former principal of Brockton. So, Superintendent of Brockton. So you've got someone in office that's really passionate about what he does. And I think we can know that you've got somebody that it's a strong proponent of education there at the State House. So it was good to hear, kind of reiterate that process, talk with some of our fellow colleagues from the school committees around the state and the superintendents as well to kind of just get a good rounding of what's going on. And it's encouraging. Clearly the commissioner's focus has been the evaluation process and how we continue those conversations that we'll have with our own representatives here in Carver, and looking forward to that process as we come to some good conclusions in that process as well. But it was good overall, and I enjoyed going.
There was an interesting speaker who used to be really trying to push a business model on education, that he'd spend his career developing a business model, and he developed what was considered at the time the best ice cream in the United States. And but he wanted to tell teachers and principals and superintendents really how they should do their work, because he'd figured it out for us. But some smart superintendent somewhere in South Missouri or someplace invited him and said, you can't bring any assistants, you can't bring any help with you, and this is where you're going to be in the morning, this is what you're going to do. So he was a para in 3rd grade in the morning. He had lunch duty and bus duty, and he was teaching a small group of students in a reading in the afternoon, and he said, I couldn't do this. I mean, you have to schedule your restroom breaks within a 3-second opportunity. And I guess at the breakdown of the day, somebody in the school community stood up and he was talking about what a successful ice cream man he was. He says, this woman says to him, well, what if somebody sends you a crate of blueberries and they're not so good? He says, well, I send them back, I don't pay for them. He says, guess what? We take them all. We take them if they're hungry when they come here. We take them if they've never been read to when they were a child. We take them if they have multiple handicaps. We take them if they don't have a penny. We have to provide lunch and breakfast for them. We take them all. We can't send anyone back. It changed him. It really changed him, and it was very refreshing, you know. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, it was neat.
Made my day, that one did.
Yes.
So it was well worth our time, Lance and mine. So then the last is some field trips, and you had some of those in the packet that were sent out to you. Some of them had to be rescheduled because of the weather. So I recommend all of the field trips. There's one to Great East Musical Festival by Donna Merritt, where the students go and compete with the chorus, and they will go by bus. Comes to you because it's more than 75 miles away, and it's on April 31st. I'm sorry, May 31st.
I make a motion to approve the field trip to Six Flags for the chorus.
All right.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none, it is unanimous.
The next one, and Lance, you'll need to sign these before you leave.
Yes.
The next one is the student council wants to go to Cocoa Key. We had to put them off because we actually didn't have the meeting before this, so they're going. They haven't received their date, but probably it's going to be Friday, March 22nd, 2013. They're waiting on a confirmation because they were scheduled to go last Friday night, but because we didn't have our February meeting, they couldn't go. So they will now go. This is student council. It's after school. It's evening fun activity.
Yeah, they'll leave right after.
When school's concluded. Okay. Alrighty. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Cocoa Key Waters Resort field trip.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous.
And then on the back of the Cocoa Key is Dave Wechter, again, Sunday, March 24th, to go to Rhode Island for Sky Zone Indoor Trampoline Park, class Spirit, and grade 8, class of 2017. He's requesting permission to go, and again, it's more than 75 miles.
Alrighty, we have the field trip before us. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Sky Zone Indoor Trampoline Park field trip on Sunday, March 24th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that again.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
He's having fun.
You
Yes.
say March 24th, although it lists as 3/3 on the sheet. Listed as March 3rd.
The new one that
There's a revised one on the back.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
A lot of these had to, because we did not
Dates
meet
changed, right?
In February.
in February, had to be changed. Sorry.
It was in the most recent packet there.
Sorry for any confusion.
So we do have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Barring the fact that Mr. Neef will not be going to the trampoline park.
Hopefully we better by then. I won't be going. I don't think so, though.
So then the last business reports from school committee?
Yes, we have, it's open to school committee for your thoughts.
Well, I'll say thank you for that wonderful, with the principals, you know, the students that got on the principals list. My daughter was one of them, so I got to attend, and we had some good pizza, and it was really nice, and I liked how you really honored that one student. I thought you did an awesome job. You speak so well, and you really care.
Megan Gonzalez did a very nice job.
Yeah, but your heart is so into these students, and I just really appreciate that. You can really see that. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just two things I'd like to note, and excuse me if you could probably correct me, Scott. Is it Tony Pires?
Tony Pires.
Pires? Yeah, that broke the 1,000 point mark. Yeah, that's a fantastic.
Yeah, I wanted to say there was, and I meant to say when I was up there, one of the kids misread the all-star.
He was an all-star, wasn't he?
Tony Pires was an all-star, not the other kid you mentioned. So Tony Pires was an all-star for the social league, and he broke 1,000 points.
Yeah, in case, if you want to say that for the public, because I don't think anybody heard what Mike just shared. If you want to.
I can say it if you want.
Give that.
Yeah. I meant to do this when I was up there in a correction, but
Sure.
There was a correction on the all-stars for the basketball, and our all-stars for the other sports aren't out yet. Wrestling and gymnastics will come out soon, but the two all-stars for basketball on the girls' side was Alex Rosen, on the boys' side was Tony Pires. It was misspoken earlier.
Great.
And Tony did reach a 1,000-point mark at the Pope John Paul game last week, second player in the last 2 years to reach that.
Excellent milestone.
Yeah, it was
fantastic. Yeah.
Actually, we played them a second-round playoff game against Bishop Connolly that night, and we were playing against another student who, from Bishop Connolly, had 1,000 points recently. So it's a big accomplishment. So I wanted to make sure we cleared that up.
Very much, and I wanted to congratulate him on reaching that. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is it's still March 21st for the Music Boosters.
March Music Madness, yes.
Yep, the March Madness, which I haven't attended, but I have heard much of their music, and they do a phenomenal job. And it's something it's 7 to 9 on that night. So
it's a wonderful event.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to add something from congratulations to two graduates of the class of 2010. They both were 1,000 pointers as well in girls basketball, women's basketball. They both play for Colby Sawyer. They're juniors, and their team won their division and went to the NCAA game. They lost in the first round, but that was pretty good for Carver to have two students go all the way to an NCAA playoff. So Mari Meserve and Ashley Frizzetti are the two students. So. Very proud.
Any other thoughts? Well, I just want to thank the committee tonight for its great work. I think it's been a lot of heavy subjects for us to have to deal with recently, and we'll continue to deal with, and I appreciate the way we are able to share with each other and have open discussions and continue that process as we go with this, through this, and really I know your hearts personally, but obviously when situations like the young man come up, and we're going to have more of those kind of things, and I thank you for your passion and your willingness to come up front, because this isn't an easy job, and I commend you for that. So thank you. With that, we do need to...
Excuse me, guys, could we just remind the public that we
Yes.
have math night tomorrow night?
Yes, we do. My daughter's very excited for it. Just a reminder to the public, tomorrow at the elementary school, we have math night beginning at...
It's 6:30.
Beginning at 6:30, and that will be in which building?
The Irwin K. Washburn.
In the Irwin K. Washburn cafeteria?
Yes.
Yes.
And then on Thursday night is our PTO meeting, and we have a presentation on positive behavior intervention and support.
So, Ruby, why don't you come up so I can get it accurate here?
And maybe tell me up
How the reminders.
So again, Ruby Maestas, the elementary school principal, and I just wanted to remind folks that our math night is tomorrow night, and it's in the Irwin K. Washburn building, and that is open to all students K through 5. And then on Thursday, March 7th, we have our PTO meeting at 7 p.m., and we have a special presentation on positive behavior intervention supports, and that is at 7 p.m., so everyone is welcome. Come on over and learn about PBIS and how we are incorporating it into our school day. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ruby.
And Mr. Neef, you wanted to, you were? Oh, okay. All right.
Never hurts to say parent conferences.
If you decide on what contract, now you have to come back to open session and announce.
Right. Does that need to be done? Can we have our discussions and then?
You're supposed to do it the same meeting.
Okay. All right. We will need to adjourn to executive session to reconvene once concluded. So I need a motion to close regular session, open an executive session for the purpose of, and then to reconvene after for final vote. Is that correct? Yes. And not everybody jump at once.
I'm lost, so what are we doing?
I'd like to make a motion to.
James has it.
I'd like to make a motion to convene into executive session.
Thank you, James. We have a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of?
For the purpose of the superintendent negotiations,
Yes.
contract negotiation.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
And to return to regular session to vote after.
Correct. Yes.
Second.
Sorry for the unofficial line.
Yes.
Say yes. Has to be a roll.
All those in favor? Has to be a roll call.
Aye.
James?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye. Aye.
Paula? And that's an aye for me. Thank you to the rest of you this evening. Have a good night.
Thank you, Donna, for staying the course.
All right. Good evening.
So,
yes.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene our school committee meeting to discuss the superintendent's contract.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
With that,
You have to roll call vote.
to reconvene? Yes. We need a roll call to reconvene. James?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Aye.
And myself. It is unanimous. All right, we are reconvened back into general session for the purpose of voting on the superintendent's contract. With that, I would like to share the details of the contract as far as it is a 3-year deal for the contract. With that, over the next 3 years, so starting in fiscal year 14, she will receive an increase of 1.5%. In year 2015, an increase of 2%, and 2%, and in 2016, an increase of 3%. With that, there was a request for a mileage allowance. The committee decided that we would like to see that put into the base of the salary as we move forward. Potentially, superintendent has shared with us that this is probably her last contract. So we will be needing to hire a new contract, and we need to, we wanted to see that put into the base salary. So we are taking the mileage, which is an allotment of $200 a month at $2,400 a year, and adding that to the base salary for those years. And that's what we've done with the contract.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to the next 3 years.
Thank you, Liz. Well, as been shared, we value the great work that you've done for our district, and we know you're a strong proponent for that. So with that, we'll ask the school committee that we will now need to vote on that contract. So again, I will go through a roll call. James?
A motion to approve.
Yep, first I need a motion to approve the contract.
I would like to make a motion to approve the salary changes to the superintendent's new contract.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will go to a roll call vote. James?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Callie?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
And myself, it is an aye as well. So with that, it passes unanimously. So thank you, Liz.
Thank you very much, we're very grateful.
And we look forward to the next 3 years and to see what the district has for it.
We'll keep working as hard as always have and harder if possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Which can be just aye.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting for March 4th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We are concluded for the evening of March 4th.